Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the March 12th, 2025 regular council meeting. Call the meeting to order. We'll go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Councilmember Burris. Present. Councilmember Douglas.
Present.
Councilmember Hilberg.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem McCauley. Here. Mayor Loman.
Here. All right, and item 1D, I'd like to request a change to the agenda order and to move item 8C to immediately following the approval of the agenda. Our presenter has a need to leave early. No objections. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda order with a change to 8C?
I'll move that we approve the agenda order with the modifications as mentioned.
I second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Right. We have Mike Lucan from Four Leaf here to present on our FEMA home hardening and defensible space agreement for services. Good evening.
Hello, everyone. I forgot how to use this. It's good to be back. So, yeah, Mike Lucan representing Four Leaf Incorporated, a construction management firm out of Sacramento, California, with offices throughout the West. Tonight, just here to say that we're excited to get going with the FEMA home hardening project. It's a project, the first of its kind in Placer County, and we're very encouraged and excited to begin the journey to hopefully do home hardening and defensible space on 130 up to 137 homes here in the community of Colfax. It's certainly a project since the river fire that's very much needed in our community. And in responding to things that the Fire Safe Council has identified as needed in the community. We have assembled a team of professionals that have actually worked on home hardening projects before. Not only has Four Leaf Incorporated worked in communities that have had destructive wildfires such as Paradise and Lahaina in Hawaii. But our team that we've assembled for this project has experience. Some of our environmental consultants on our team are currently working in El Dorado County on a home hardening project there. Another member of our team, Deanna Fernway, is actually the project manager of the Lake County home hardening project for North Coast Resources. So we brought someone in that has direct experience working with FEMA and with OES and with CAL FIRE and others. And then we brought in a familiar face to you, Lori Adams with Adams Ashby, your grant manager, to manage the grant portion of this. Our intent is this will be a turnkey project for the city. We'll work certainly closely with Ron and Shanna to implement it. It's a project that has a lot of upfront work, and so there'll be, depending on how long it takes for FEMA and OES to approve the environmental documents that we create for this project, we'll probably likely about a year from now actually start the process of working with homeowners on home hardening. Hopefully sooner, but it all depends upon how quickly those environmental documents can get approved. We will have a aggressive marketing campaign to reach out to residents in the community. It's eligible to single-family homeowners and owners of duplexes and triplexes and mobile homes. It is not open to either commercial structures, and that's per FEMA's guidelines, and it's not open to apartment complexes. And homeowners can do hardening and defensible space, or they can just do defensible space projects, whatever in that specific case that they need. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have on the project. And again, we're just really excited to get going on this and make 137 homes safer in the community. So.
Thank you very much. Does the public have any comments on this item?
This is specifically only for Colfax City.
Yes, it's only for this inside the city limits. Yeah.
Any questions online? No. All right. Council?
I just have one. I just did some math, real quick math. That's like $12,000 a home. And I'm wondering, after all the prep work, how much of that 2 million might be left for working on the houses?
So the grant is actually 6.2 million. And
6.2.
yes, and so unfortunately, $2 million because of the extensive environmental review that is required by FEMA and OES, and all the hoops that we have to jump through for that. It does take a large amount of time to complete that. And we have to do biological surveys and botanical surveys, historic surveys, earthquake, you name it. We have to analyze it on, because this application was designed for all of Colfax. We have to do that on every single parcel that a residential unit is occupied on. So many communities have like a focused area, but we decided with Colfax, we do the whole town. So we have to analyze every single parcel. And then so that those homeowners will either be eligible, because there's no environmental issues on their property, or if there is an environmental issue on their property or it's a historic property, we have a means with actually implementing it and still complying with the various rules like the National Historic Preservation Act. So.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
What I was wondering is whether or not we could do a letter of interest period to see if, at least get I would say narrow down those parcels to potentially save cost on the total amount that we have to spend out of the pot on parcel surveys. Could we potentially put that on the front end and narrow down the scope a little bit? Or is that not advised?
Unfortunately, when you submit the application and it gets approved by FEMA, you have to comply with that. You're stuck with that application. So.
All right, simple enough.
So we'd love to do that, but it's I would say it's not advisable to ask for. It took a long time for you guys to get funded. It would take another long period of time, especially with what's going on at the federal level, to get an amendment. So.
Yeah, nothing.
Oh, I forgot to say that we have a very important partner with this project. CAL FIRE is actually working with us on the defensible space component of that. And I just met with the CAL FIRE chief yesterday, and he reiterated his commitment to work with us.
So does that preparation include prioritizing and allocation of funds across properties?
Well, once we clear properties environmentally, there'll be a list of properties that have no environmental restrictions on them whatsoever. And so in a way, they're sort of prioritizing. We'll market to them first. And then secondly, the properties that have some more challenges, we'll still work with them, but it's a little more laborious process. And what happens when someone says, hey, I'm interested in doing something to my home, we actually have a construction manager that will go out and meet with the homeowner. They'll work with the homeowner to develop a scope of work of what needs to be done to their property. And in this case, it can only be things that make it safe for fire, to make it safe from fire hazards. We can't like add a bedroom on or something else like that, as some other housing rehab programs sometimes can do. This is very restrictive to that. But once we come up with a scope of work, we will help the homeowner select a contractor. Actually, the homeowner hires the contractor. Four Leaf doesn't hire the contractor. The city doesn't hire the contractor. That's actually a very important part of the application, so that neither the city nor Four Leaf take on things like construction liability, which would be, we would not advise you to do that. So, and then once the homeowner, once that's done, the city would then make progress payments upon certain completion milestones, just like you would with a, you know, if you're doing a home remodel, the same kind of thing, and make those construction payments along the lines. And we'll work very closely with the city to then get reimbursed for that as expeditiously as possible.
And one last one, I may have missed it. Do you look at erosion or risk of erosion?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
And-
Sorry, I have one last question.
All right, go ahead.
Could you just remind me what the household match requirement percentage was? Oh, okay, perfect.
Okay, yeah, so this is a unique program versus some housing rehab programs. It's a grant. And it's a grant of 90% of the cost of the project. The homeowner has to come up with 10% of the cost of the project. That is, if you will, the matching funds for this program. And typically these are structured so that the homeowner's 10% actually gets paid first, so that there's a commitment to then get the 90%. So.
And you said the total amount of the grant was 6.2?
Yes, and so if you divide that by and subtract the setup and administrative costs, we're looking at
It's about $3,000 a household skin in the game they need to come up with.
yeah.
Or are we also including administrative costs in the total?
No, that comes off the top. But so no, the homeowner does not pay the administrative costs.
Beautiful.
The homeowner essentially will only pay for the cost of construction to the 10% of the cost of the construction or defensible space to the home. There will be FEMA does require a ongoing commitment by the homeowner to maintain their property, so they will actually sign an agreement with the city actually that once this defensible space and home hardening happens, they are required for, I don't have the exact number in front of me, but 10 to 15 years to maintain that property. So in a fire safe manner. So
it
Great.
sounds like the goalpost right now for the average household is save up $3,000 in preparation for when this grant rolls out, so that you've already got some cash put aside to be able to participate. I know that total amount can shift depending on how many applications and total pool of, approved parcels. But if we did have 137 households splitting the final pot, and, you have a goal today to start saving $3,000, you're going to be in a really good position when it's finally time to apply.
I would say that based upon the other 12 home hardening communities in the state, we're learning from what's happened with them due to inflation and you literally submitted the application about 4 years ago. Likely the average cost of per home is going to be much greater than the $37,000 that was in the application. And so, with housing rehabilitation and home hardening projects, when you, as we all know, when you open up a house, there's other issues. So we might have to fix something affiliated with another home hardening thing, because you can't do that without making the home safe. So. Yeah, so Lake County as a comparison is probably seeing homes average more along the $50,000 range.
So go between $3,000 and $5,000 for a target window to save.
Just
then so just to keep it in your mind, right?
Yes.
All right.
And
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
it'll be about a year to 18 months before we really start rolling.
Hopefully no more than a year. It sort of depends on what's happening at the federal level, but and we did check to make sure, Ron and I did, to make sure that the money's still there, and it is.
It's already been banked. It's already in a pot.
Yeah.
It's not going anywhere. It's already been signed.
Unless something else happens, but we'll make sure. Yeah, it's we're hoping it's about 12 months. So actually, we would recommend that you don't start marketing the program quite yet because we don't want to build up people's expectations for a certain date and then say, oh, well, it's another 6 months. So,
Great.
all right.
Any more questions? Public, yeah.
There's a wide range of things that can be done for home hardening. But it's things such as roofs and siding is a very common one. Venting to prevent sparks from coming into the home during a forest fire. Those are some of the common things. One thing that we're hoping there's an answer for soon is decks. FEMA actually requires that the materials that you use are non-combustible. And so far, nationwide, there is no such thing as a non-combustible deck material, not Trex, not anything. So decks might be a little bit of a challenge, but hopefully by the time we get going, they'll have found an answer to that.
There's aluminum decking.
Well, yeah, you can do aluminum decking. Yeah, yeah. So that's a little extreme, but yes, yeah. Yes, actually, defensible space is a very important part of that, and that'll be part of the scope of work. And then actually, we have our partners at Cal Fire will actually come in and do a post inspection to make sure that it's to Cal Fire's fire safe standards. So.
Ron, didn't they put windows on that too, since now the requirements are for tempered glass? Was that an option or is that not going to happen? Ron, did I just call him Ron?
I think it's
Sorry, Mike.
sort of, that's okay.
Because I had that conversation with him, so.
That's okay. It's windows are sort of on a case by case basis. So
Just know they made the new requirement for the tempered glass for all of them, because it used to be just near water and now it's all of them are supposed to be tempered.
right.
So,
Right.
okay.
And just a reminder that we're not bringing things up to California. Well, if we have to, they'll be brought up to California Uniform Building Code, but it's mainly to harden the home from forest fire. So.
Yeah, and if I may, Mike, one of the other items they look at is enclosing your soffits around the house
Yes.
so flames can't burn into your attic.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank
Any
you
other
very much.
questions? Let's make sure. All right. Thank you, Mike. Really appreciate you taking the time to be here.
And thank you for moving this up on the agenda. My wife has a little bit of a medical issue, emergency. I have to go pick her up from the airport. So
No
thank
problem.
you. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
I got to run back.
Oh, yes. No problem. We'll keep going now. All right. We'll go ahead and do item 1E, our conflict of interest statement.
It's a,
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I get a motion to approve our services agreement with Four Leaf?
I'll move approval of the item. And then I just wanted to also make a side note, while we don't want to advertise the program as being a for sure thing by any means, I would just encourage council to communicate that it's a good time to start saving $200 a month for the next 18 to 24 months, because that'll put you in a good spot as an applicant. So motion on the table.
I'll second the motion to approve it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? All right. It passes. All right. Now we can move on to 1E, conflict of interest statement. Anybody got to change conflict of interest? No. Great.
No change.
Thank you. Move on to item 2, the consent calendar. All items on the consent calendar are routine in nature and will be approved by one blanket motion by council vote unless a council member or members of the public request an item pulled from consent for discussion. I'm just. All right.
So I'll go ahead and move approval with the exception of item 2B.
All right.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain? All right. And we'll move on to item 2B. The new sidewalk repair and maintenance liability ordinance. Kathy?
Hi, Kathy Pease, planning consultant. Just as a reminder, this is the second reading of a proposed sidewalk ordinance. The proposed ordinance is to clarify responsibilities. As a reminder, this law has been on the books in California since 1924. And so what the city is attempting to do with this is identify things where the city is responsible. So we've made some clarifications to the ordinance. And so with that.
Thank you. Mike?
Mike Maynard, city property owner. I have a few questions. I never got a chance to really read the rewrite of the ordinance. But I did find under section 12.24.010, section F. And if I'm reading this correctly, pretty much says that the city has to fix the sidewalks before they even throw this down our throat. Notwithstanding the foregoing, the owners believe the damage to the sidewalks was caused by the city. All right, lack of maintenance caused that damage. So that would seem to me that the city should repair it before it makes us responsible. And I have a question. Mr. Mayor, do you live in the city? Obviously, you all do. Do you have a sidewalk in front of your house?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I do not.
I do.
You live on Pleasant Street?
Pleasant Street, and I have one up on the Bark where there shouldn't be one. I have a sidewalk to nowhere.
So you have a partial sidewalk on Pleasant Street?
I do not.
Mr. Douglas, do you have a sidewalk in front of your house?
Back.
In the back of the house? So you're responsible for that one? Okay. So my question is the city going to repair these sidewalks before this gets shoved down our throat?
So under current law, we wouldn't be required to, but once we pass this tonight, yes, we will repair the things that are our responsibility that the city failed to maintain or that caused before the property owner becomes responsible. That is a new change we are enacting by bringing this ordinance into place.
Great. I wish you would have said that a couple weeks ago.
I have, but apparently my articulation has not been great. So I'm glad that you asked it the way you did so we could kind of get to the bottom of it.
Well, and I do want to clarify, it says that the owner has to notify the city. It's not that we're going to go out and walk all of the sidewalks and fix them. The owner has to notify the city. Yes.
Yeah, that's a great argument that somebody can make, definitely.
And just a reminder, it's very easy to file a complaint with the city. You can email the city clerk. You can walk in, file a complaint. You can make a phone call. Generally, we like to have it in writing so that we kept track of it. We have an online form. That's all it takes. Once you trigger it, then we have to boogie.
Yep.
I actually do also want to remind the public that if they go to the city's website, you can sign up to get the agendas emailed to you as soon as they're published, and they will have this on it so you can read it beforehand. Just in case in the future you might need it. If you sign up for the email, it'll land on your inbox like Friday afternoon or Monday morning. I can't remember.
To
There you
Mike's
go.
credit, though, that was a great question for someone who didn't have much time to read before the meeting. I really appreciate that. That's thorough. Thank you.
All right. Do we have any other public comment on this item tonight? No, seeing none. Council, any other comments?
No, I'll make a motion that we approve 2B then.
All right, can I get a second?
I've been taking a lot of.
I'd like to ask a question first.
All right.
Yeah, I'm reading F. And it says if the director determines that all or a portion of the damage to the sidewalk was caused solely by the city. Is that the one we're talking about?
Yes.
That would be really difficult, I think. Maybe Connor can speak to that, but caused solely by the city, that's a pretty hard hurdle to jump, I think.
I don't have an opinion on how high of a bar that is. I'm not sure if there's a more specific question I could answer.
It's regarding
I see it.
Yes.
It says solely caused by the city.
Yeah.
The paragraph above it, I think we were trying to define what that was. We talked about snow removal or all or a portion of the damage to the sidewalk was caused by a city tree. So we tried to define what types of actions could cause that.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here, Kathy. I think this is ultimately just a question of fact that the Public Works Director would be responsible for deciding. So
And,
it's not really a legal question.
and on top of that, here's the good news. You guys have the ability to appeal any decision made in here. So it comes before council and the entirety of the world and the public, and everybody gets to hash it out in front of the public on the record, on video, where it can never be, disputed what we had to say about it. So if at any point there's a dispute in this process, it has to be hashed out publicly by council. What's that? If you have a sidewalk to nowhere too, we did make sure there were provisions to get rid of those because we don't want people climbing up in unsafe areas or doing things that are going to create liability for absolutely no reason. So we can definitely get rid of things that don't belong.
Any other comments?
Second.
Can I get a second on Caroline's motion?
I'll go ahead and second that motion.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain. All right. TP passes. All right, we'll move on to item 3, agency reports, Placer County Sheriff.
Good evening. How's everybody doing today? Good. Sergeant Toby Williams, Placer County Sheriff's Office. A little bit from the month of February, we had 93 total incidents that we were involved with in the city of Colfax. 55 of those were citizen driven, so they're the ones you guys called in for a variety of things. 45% were deputy initiated. We have 18 traffic stops. 15 calls were considered suspicious activity, and 10 transient related calls. We found a couple of people camping down off of Carpenter Road, and we've talked with a couple of property owners down there to get some trespassing letters on file, which means that we can now criminally charge folks who are on certain pieces of property down there. So hopefully we can try to mitigate some of that dumping ground down there bit by bit. So other than that, I don't really have anything pressing that's happened over the last month, or anything in the last, couple weeks or so. Just prepping for this next storm, working with Cal Fire and CHP. So, anybody have any questions?
I do. I was hoping that we could schedule some time to do a potential meet and greet with the council members and our current deputies, because we have a little bit of a disconnect from the culture we've had previously, where we were really tightly connected and we all kind of knew each other, and it helped with the rapport downtown. And so I'm hoping we can set something up maybe in April, if that's amenable to you guys. But I just really like to rebuild some of that connection that, we've lost with all the change of faces.
Sure, no
Thank
problem.
you.
I can stop in tomorrow and we can at least try to iron out a date or a couple of
Yeah.
dates to look at in April.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know how everyone else feels about it, but maybe we can invite the public as well. Give us a few minutes with you guys and then let the public come meet and greet. I just want people to get comfortable and familiar with the faces they see.
Okay, absolutely. I'll be happy to work with Toby to set up a calendar like I have on the past events that we've tried to plan with all council members. Perfect.
Could you let the public know a little bit more about that no trespass or the trespassing access you have? I know we've discussed it several years ago and it's a great document, but if you
Okay.
can tell them where to get it, how often to file it. I don't remember if it's every year or twice a year, but it's a great document for you guys to be able to have on file. So if you could tell them a little bit more about it, please.
Sure. So every property owner has the right to refuse to have people on their property when they're not allowed to, specifically those who have a lot of acreage or lots of miscellaneous properties throughout Placer County. If you have what's called a trespass letter, so it's a document that the sheriff's office has generated to provide to property owners, and you have to be the legal owner. Okay. If you are a caretaker, I need to have the legal owner actually sign this. And basically it says that we can enforce trespassing ordinances. So somebody comes onto your property, despite having no trespassing signs and all the warnings in the world that says, hey, you cannot be here, and somebody is there. I don't have to have you as the property owner to cite it, right? I can go ahead, or my deputies can go ahead and cite that person as is because they ignored the signs. You are not supposed to be here. Okay. So, again, works really well for those that have a lot of property, a lot of acreage, or may not be in town so much. And we can go ahead and enforce it. So I believe it's on our website. If not, you can go down to the sheriff's office in Auburn and pick up the trespassing letter. It's once a year that you have to renew it. Please be diligent with that because some people do unfortunately let it subside and we can't do anything with it until it gets renewed. But it's a very, very good tool. And we often get not only trespassers off your property, but these are also folks that are wanted in some way, shape, or form because they're just trying to hide. So you get to catch a bigger fish. Yes, sir. Yes. Yeah, it does need to be posted. It helps because common sense dictates this is not my land, so I shouldn't be on it. But the people we deal with don't really think that way, right? If they don't find a sign, hey, I get to be on it. So it helps us a lot when it is posted correctly. That way there's no argument. They have nothing in court to argue if they decide to fight it. So, yes, sir.
There a way to get the traffic to slow down between Central and Grass Valley Street on South Auburn Street as a drag strip?
I mean,
between the Shell and the hotel on South Auburn.
What time of day?
All day, all night.
We can continue on just with proactive patrols.
Been going on for years.
Okay. Yeah, I can get them just out and about and. Okay.
Especially at night after you guys have gone home.
Mhm.
Get up, sit on the couch and it's
With more, I'm hoping that we can try to get some more deputies. We're in a hiring, I wouldn't say crunch. We're hiring a lot of people. Let's just put it that way. Okay. Hopefully we did have a third person up here. Usually we have two during the day and during the afternoons. We used to have a third many, many years ago. It's my goal to try to bring a third person back up to kind of help fill in those gaps. It's a long, tedious process with West Roseville going in right now. But it is on the radar to get back in the books. So well, that's up to them.
You're accounting for the car out there with the mannequin.
Yeah, we don't have that. So
I would say that any non-emergency event, if you'll call the non-emergency dispatch number at the sheriff's office, they will write down your complaint. But no, but not to respond, but so they can build a record on it. So they know where they need to do more enforcement at, and they can change their enforcement patterns. And that way they have a record of it and they know where to go and where not to go.
Exactly. Because we all know with tourist season or the roads closed or whatnot, we have those peak times, right? Holidays, all these different times where speed is speed, right? But there are some times where it's a lot more prevalent than others, right? You get whatever those consistent offenders are, they're always at this particular time. So with what Ron said, it's exactly it. Exactly it. So we can help narrow down some of those times. Sure thing. Anybody else?
Any other questions?
So I just wanted to add that no trust is.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
CHP? Officer Lyman?
Good evening, everybody. Officer Jason Lyman, California Highway Patrol, Gold Run Area Public Information Officer. I'll start out here with some stats from last month. Again, we had quite an uptick in our citations issued. We did 530 last month and 266 warnings on top of that. We also had 347 motorist services helping people out that are broke down. There's a total of 10 arrests. 8 of those were DUI related. We also had a total of 48 collisions. 34 of those were property damage only, and 14 were injury related, but we did not have any fatalities. Biggest majority of those property damage ones were during snowstorms, people sliding off the road, driving too fast and taking the corners a little too fast, but thankfully at least they weren't hurt. Speaking of the snowstorms, obviously we're getting ready to have another pretty good round of snow, and very likely it appears that by in the morning, it's probably going to be chain control clear down here to Colfax. Even possibly the freeway being closed. They're anticipating, upwards of 4 feet of snow between now and midday tomorrow on the summit. So even if we don't have a problem here, there will be a problem farther up the hill. And so that's when the freeway usually gets closed. It is also supposed to be pretty windy as well, which causes a lot of the other trouble with the Caltrans being able to plow. By the time they plow it, it blows right back onto the freeway and, just causes more problems. We are working very closely with Caltrans. We've got several extra people assigned for the next week on snow related duties, helping Caltrans with the chain control and other traffic related things. So just please, everybody, plan ahead, be patient, make sure you're prepared, have your chains, know how to put them on, or be prepared to pay a lot of money for somebody else to put them on. And most of all, just slow down and keep a good following distance. That's our biggest trouble, is people are just, the one person is going slow, but everybody else is crowding them and getting around. And then people get anxious, and that's when usually most of the collisions happen. Any other questions for me?
No questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cal Fire.
Good evening, Clint Siebert, Placer County Fire Battalion Chief for Colfax City. This last month, we had a total of 71 calls. 43 of those were medical aids here in Colfax, and then 9 of them were traffic accidents. We had 3 vehicle fires, 0 structure fires, and 0 vegetation fires. For the rest of the month, we're continuing with burning at the North Fork fuel break and working on that. We've been making good headway down at Burnt Flat. That area there is where we're focusing on. And then we're also working out at Mount Howe. So you see us out there. We're removing a bunch of hazard trees and burning those. And with that, we'll have our DSI inspectors. We talked about that briefly earlier. They will be making their rounds on the engine so we can up some of those DSI numbers. So both engines will be out doing DSI inspections throughout the month, and you'll see them out there completing that. Any questions?
Questions? No? All right. Thank you very much. All right. Our nonprofits. Do we have nonprofits that want to speak tonight? All right. Is it Colfax?
Hi, Erin Newington with the Historic Downtown Association. I just wanted to update you on Arts Month. We have some cool events that we are pushing forward with that initiative. We have an event that Carolyn has helped us schedule at the theater for the 26th of April, where CareSphere is bringing in a well-known guitarist. This is going to be a fundraising event that's geared to attract about 100 people to the town. To the city. So that's super exciting. We are working with the local businesses to make sure that they're open and finding and promoting accommodations for people who might want to stay over. We do have a paint and brunch scheduled at the Wrecking Crew on the 13th, and we're working to schedule an artist meetup at Snapdragon, and we're putting together, or we're attempting to put together some kind of a highlight for local talent, musicians, hopefully at the theater. We're working on that right now, so crossing our fingers there. And we're also putting together a committee of people that are super interested in bringing more arts to the city and seeing if we can get those people together and have more events like this planned.
Thank you. Any other nonprofits tonight? No? All right, we'll move on to item 4, presentations. Tonight we have a presentation from Sacramento Area Council of Governments. Trinity, did you want to introduce oh, sorry, Carol.
That's me.
Did you want to introduce the speaker?
All right. So for those of you that don't know, SACOG is the Sacramento Area Council of Governments. It's made up of 6 counties and is our region's federally designated metropolitan planning organization. They work closely with PCTPA, the Placer County State Designated Regional Transportation Planning Agency, and that's a lot of words. In short, SACOG manages federal funds and collaborates with PCTPA to distribute transportation funds. While you'll hear more about the blueprint plan today, which is what Clint's here to share, our city has been working on this through our local planning efforts for quite a long time. SACOG has been instrumental in helping Colfax obtain grant funding for previous projects such as our downtown connectivity and Main Street improvement and concept plans, which are our guiding documents to help revitalize downtown. In addition, the city of Colfax has received $40,000 in REAP 1 funding to hire the planning consultant to update our city's zoning codes to stay up to date with state laws and to better prepare for the next housing element cycle. So now that you know what SACOG is and does for Colfax and our neighboring areas, I'd like to introduce Clint Holtzen, the planning manager for SACOG. He's here to share our region's long-range transportation and land use plans known as the 2025 Blueprint.
Thank you. Assume I've just advanced. Thank you. That's perfect. So as you heard, SACOG is the Metropolitan Planning Organization. So that's a federal designation that we have. Our board is made up of elected officials from every jurisdiction here. So 31-member board, every single board, Colfax is represented on our board. Every single jurisdiction, city and county is represented at SACOG. So it's a place where we can really wrestle with regional issues, things that are just too big for any one jurisdiction to tackle on its own. So this long-range plan that we are adopting is, we call it the 2025 Blueprint. This is a federally and state mandated plan. What it is intended to do is show kind of coordination on transportation and land use across administrative boundaries, because we all live our lives crossing these boundaries. And so what we're looking at is what is our regional vision for this SACOG region, this 6-county, 22-city region. Go ahead and you can jump to the next one. So when we start these, what we ask our board to do is kind of tell us what you want your main priorities for this plan. This is a really big plan. It goes out 20 years into the, well, at least 20 years into the future. What we're looking out to right now is out to 2050. So we ask our board, what is important to you? What do you want to see as kind of lead in the analysis and the discussions that as we update this plan. And these plans take 2 to 3 years to update, and we have to update this every 4 years. So it is just a constant update. This is a very living document. And so what our board wanted to advance is this kind of triple bottom line framework of advancing equity, bringing people's voices into the plan. And we took an additional 2 years to do this plan. We got state relief to go ahead and do that so that we could really go out and do a lot more community outreach in this plan. And I'll talk a little bit about what we did. Economy, our board really wanted to focus on how do we make the economy work for everyone in this region, and then how do we protect what is really special and makes people want to come here, and that is our working lands, our open space, our agriculture. In the entire region, we're about 75% open space. Only about 25% of us of the land area is actually urbanized. Jump to the next slide. So I'll talk a little bit about the themes that we heard from our outreach. You can go ahead and jump to the next. So we took, I mentioned we took an additional 2 years to do community outreach. So we did pop-up workshops. We did one here in Colfax at, I think, your 4th of July celebration last year, a couple of years ago now. We did a lot of surveys of residents. We did a big poll, a region-wide poll. We did focus groups, and in all, we touched about 6,000 residents across the entire region. And what we heard in that, on the next slide, is kind of these themes about what people really care about. And I'll highlight a couple of these because I think they even came up tonight. The number one concern that we heard from residents was housing affordability, that our communities are just becoming too unaffordable. There was concern that kids and grandkids were not going to be able to move back into the towns that they grew up in. And so finding ways to produce housing, produce more types of housing throughout the region where people could live in their communities, not just people in their kind of starter homes, but also people who are kind of empty nesters and maybe wanting to move to something smaller, but they might be trapped in the existing home because you can't even downsize for less money than what you currently are paying. And so that was a big concern to the region. But also among those was crime and safety, feeling safe on your roadway system, feeling safe being able to walk to a transit stop to your car, safety on the roads in your car. Was of huge importance. And then something that we hadn't heard in prior updates that really resonated this time was preparing for natural disasters. And you heard from Mike Lucan earlier today, you guys are already moving in that direction, but those are really what we heard from residents wanting to prioritize in this plan. And jump to the next slide. Here's one of the quotes that just gets to that from a resident that gets to that disaster preparedness or that readiness of having multiple ways to get in and out of a community is hugely important. And then this is just kind of a ranking of what we heard from people. And I mentioned affordable housing at the very top of that, crime and public safety, and then lack of transportation options for folks. Those are really what resonated with residents throughout the entire region. Next slide. So, of course, as planners, we have to do lots and lots of technical analysis. So go ahead and jump to the next. I mentioned this plan goes out to 2050. So one of the very first things we do is how many people are coming to this region over the next 25 years? And so we'll look out over the next 20 years out to 2050. We're looking at, what's happening at the national level as far as growth, what's happening at our region. And our region is the fastest growing region in California. Placer County is the fastest growing county in California. And that's going to stay true for a while. But we're seeing a downward, we're going to be growing through 2050, but that growth rate is slowing over time. That is true at the national level and it's true at the California level. And in our region, while we are fast growing, you're good. That was perfect to jump forward. So what does that look like in Colfax? Region-wide, we're about 2.5 million people today. We expect to grow by about a quarter to about 3.1 million people by 2050. To accommodate all of those people, we'll need to build another 260,000 housing, or 278,000 housing units, 260,000 jobs. And then what you see on the right is what our plan is assuming as far as growth in Colfax. This growth is really based on kind of what you've been seeing in Colfax over the last 10 years. I'll emphasize here, and this came I was here 2 years ago and we talked a little about, as we were just starting to work on this plan. One of the strategies here is bringing more jobs into communities that are housing rich so that you don't have to travel so far to get to what you need on a daily basis. And you'll notice the plan calling for an additional 300 jobs, 145,000 homes in Colfax over the next 30 years. Go ahead and jump to the next. So this is what this is kind of the growth footprint for the region, and those darker blue areas, that is the existing urbanized area. And so what our plan is assuming is about 2/3 of all of that growth is going to happen in those darker blue areas, and then that lighter blue around the edges, those are areas that are either not growing yet today, but they're planned for growth in the next 20 years, or they've just started to grow. And so this is very much in line with what we've seen in the past 10 years, growth in these darker blue and these existing urbanized areas. What our plan is trying to do is really invest in existing communities first and fill those out before we take the next leap and start building out into new areas. You can jump to the next slide and go ahead and jump one more. And I want to talk a little bit about kind of this big regional plan. And, I'll acknowledge SACOG is in downtown Sacramento. And oftentimes when we talk infill and we talk transportation investment, it sounds like we are talking about high rises and mixed use. And that's not what we're talking about. And when we're thinking about Colfax, infill and redevelopment and investing in existing communities has got to align with that community's character, with that community's goals. And so these things look different across the region. And I think Kathy was going to come up and talk a little bit about what blueprint implementation might look like in Colfax.
Thank you. So in Colfax, obviously, we have some infill opportunities, but we don't have a tremendous amount of infill properties. So here's a picture of our Colfax Hotel. In 2020, that was approved for 8 residential rental units and 450 square feet of commercial. Unfortunately, we haven't seen any movement lately on that. I was dismayed to just find out that the design review permit and the use permit expired in September. So, we're going to want to reach out and encourage them to move forward with that project. Other opportunities, as you remember, we extended a tentative map for next to Sierra View for some single family residential. So that's still, they have another 2 years to come in on that. So that's an opportunity for additional residential. So we are just going to continue to support and outreach to folks and let them know about the infill opportunities as we go forward.
Jump to the next. And so on the transportation side, which is kind of the bread and butter of SACOG, and we work very closely with PCTPA, as you mentioned, on coordinating transportation planning and investment activities. So the kind of the theme of this long range plan, and I don't think this will come as a surprise, is really doing more with less. There is not enough money to do everything that we need. Region wide, we are falling behind about $400 to $500 million a year on maintaining streets and roads and sidewalks. When we reached out to the region to ask what kind of capital investments do we need, what kind of road widenings and things like that are you looking at in your plans over the next 20 years, we got back over $14 billion worth of needs. We can probably only fund about half of that. So this plan has to be a financially constrained plan. So it really is, there's just not enough money. And so some of the things our plan does do is prioritize maintenance first and investing in existing transportation system first. Looking to lower cost and quicker projects, things that you might be able to do a little bit more tactical, where you can bring in cones and hay bales and do something a lot faster than if you were to bring in speed bumps and things like that. And one of the things I think SACOG can do, along with PCTPA, is there are communities all across the region that are doing really interesting and innovative things. And we can connect you with those folks, and we can connect you with other public works departments that are doing really interesting things that are low cost, that might help with speed control or other things. So those are all things that SACOG, we convene and connect the region. Those are all things that I think we can really help with. We can go to the next slide. Before I jump, I'll jump into kind of where we're at in the process right now, and then I'll wrap and see if there are any questions. One of the things I wanted to highlight on kind of that maintenance front, and it's something that I heard from this group 2 years ago when we were here, is just our smaller communities in the region, they don't get their fair shake out of state transportation funds, particularly for maintaining. One of the things our plan does, and again, we are the Sacramento region, we are competing with other regions, big regions in Southern California, across the state, is call on the state to stabilize that transportation funding and make sure that regions or communities that aren't getting sufficient funding to maintain their roads are getting a return on the taxes that they pay into the system. You guys in Colfax carry a lot of traffic. And so we want to make sure that investment is coming back into Colfax from the state as well. So as far as where we're at in the process now, we have, our board has adopted our long range growth forecast. I talked about the kind of the land use assumptions that we've made. We've adopted those last year, along with a $40 billion transportation investment strategy. We're working on environmental document now and the plan. We hope to release that for a 60-day public review period here at the end of May. And we're on target, hopefully, to adopt this by December. Or by November of the end of this year. And the reason we need to adopt this plan is our region's permission slip to go after federal and state grants. Without this plan, we're not eligible for those things. And so we want to get this plan adopted, we want to get it approved, and then we want to get the money flowing into the region. So I will stop there and see if there are any questions or comments.
Just a quick question on the stabilization of funding. I've been disconnected for a bit, and maybe Carolyn may have the answer on this one. But what discussion has been had around making sure that that effort doesn't essentially bite us in the rear? Because the difficulty we have as a small community is our limited tax revenue generation, but our high volume of out-of-town traffic we accommodate, and then trying to balance that. So I'm just curious what discussions have been had at the SACOG level to ensure that as that conversation's going forward, we don't end up seeing the reverse happening where more money is taken away from smaller communities based on a calculation that maybe doesn't accurately reflect the need or impact.
Yeah, so I think I'll try to answer it at a high level and then just keep digging if I'm not quite hitting it. So right now, what the state is, we're looking into alternatives to a fuel tax. Something like a road usage charge. So think similar to the way that we charge for utilities. Rather than charging every time you go to the pump, how much do you actually use the facility? As the state is looking at that, what our board asked us to do is take a leadership role in those conversations to make sure that that return to source, where you're seeing the impact on the roadways, is really where that money needs to be going. Because right now, state formulas are largely based around population centers, right? We all pay into the fuel tax system, and then it's going to come back to us largely based on population. If we're starting to look at kind of, well, how are our roads used? Where are the impacts on our roads? That starts to change the way you might think about that equation. And you can start to think about, okay, well, we need to really invest in where people are traveling, not just in the population centers, because those people leave. And so that is kind of what our board has directed us to do, is really make sure whatever the end solution is that we are looking at where the impacts are felt. At the same time that we're looking and considering what is the impact on household budgets. That is a huge and important part of our board's direction on that topic.
There's been a lot of conversations of, but the SIP date going towards, instead of the fuel tax, going to vehicle miles driven. And also, and that's where they're paying attention to where are those miles being driven at to be able to balance out some of that.
Okay, I really, really appreciate that. And I would just say, to almost play devil's advocate to my own concern for a second, I think personal privacy is something that's very, very, very important and sacred. And we're already kind of in an age of technology where, you know, at any point, you could be subject to a subpoena from your host that has your GPS recording. And I'm not saying that that's the worst thing in the world, because it does help solve, you know, very serious crime, but there's always a balance with the government. And as we all know by now with life experience, your government's only as good as the people you elect and have as your flavor of the year. So, you know, with that being said, you know, whatever advocacy we can put together to try to make sure that as they're figuring out that methodology and calculation, we're not being overly cumbersome into privacy, because I feel like that's a major violation, you know, of people's autonomy, and we really don't want that. So, you know, I might not have a solution there, more of an ask, but, you know, maybe something good to think on about alternate solutions and how we can handle that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it just kind of hit me that if you want to track everyone's mileage, well, every 2 years you get a smog check in your vehicle and they write down your mileage. So they're already tracked. What's one way you could track it?
It's fun, but then again, you're disproportionately punishing one part of your base. You know, I think part of what they're trying to accomplish specifically by going away from the fuel tax specifically is targeting these EV drivers, myself included.
Right.
And, you know, with that being said, when you don't have smog, they're going to have to look at either self-reporting, which we all know how reliable that can be, or adding some other government process to come get your vehicle inspected, which, oh joy, more government intervention. You know, I'm just saying that there's a lot of directions they can go, and I'm hoping they can choose the way that least eliminates people's personal autonomy.
To switch subjects real quick and just to clarify on your growth forecast, For Colfax, it's 145 housing units.
145
Yeah,
housing
not, you're used to the thousands at the
Did I say
end.
1,000?
You
I'm
did, and
sorry.
I was like,
I'm
all right, no,
sorry.
just
Hope I
relax,
didn't freak
because I'm
anybody
sure a
out.
lot of people.
145 units total.
Yeah, so, trust me, I saw some eyes bug out.
Yeah, nobody jumped up and got me on that
No,
one. I'm
I was
surprised.
gonna wait
Thank
because
you.
I saw it and I laughed. Sean and I laughed. So yeah, they expect our population to grow by 400, jobs by 300, and housing units by 145, which does work with those two locations with the apartment, the property behind the apartment. If we put that in,
Yeah,
it is.
yeah.
Trust me, when this first came out, I went to Kathy. I was like, hold on, where are they pulling these numbers from? And so I had to think about it. So it's okay. We're not growing by 100.
Thank you.
1,000 houses.
Thank you for catching me on that.
I mean, if you want to extend my city limits and add my tax revenue, but put the roads in first, we can talk about it.
Let's talk about fire insurance first.
We'll be talking
In
about all
that
this
context of
later.
what Trinity just said, this one chart here that says designing two ways out.
Mhm.
I think 2 years ago when you were here on the 3rd of July, that came from me. And it was in particular the context of our schools. And transportation is already pretty good in the communities that have a lot of money. But in a place like this, it is not. Our streets, our roads aren't as well maintained. But we have a specific issue that there's only one way to get into our schools. And I think that is a consideration that any future funding of transportation should consider that. There really needs to be another way out that's viable.
Mhm.
And it's been ignored for a long time. And I hope it gets considered.
Thank you for that.
And then I have a question just briefly for Kathy. How many of those 400 are ADUs? Is that part of your numbering?
Actually, that's a great question, and ADUs do count. And the year that I've been here, that's the most activity that we've been getting. We've had 3 or 4 come in the year. It's not a high number, but those definitely count. And your next council meeting, I'll be bringing HCD housing. The state requires an annual progress report, and so we get to report those.
Great.
Thank you.
Any questions from the public before we continue? All right, thank you.
Great. Thank you all.
Presentation received. All right, we have no public hearing tonight, so we'll move on to item 6, public comment. If anybody has anything that they'd like to comment on that's not on the agenda, now's the time. We'll give everybody 5 minutes. Any public comment tonight? No? All right, nothing online? Great. We'll move on to council and staff business. Kim, you want to start us off?
Let's see. Well, on the 6th, we have our monthly coffee conversation. So I just wanted to remind everybody, you're all welcome, 8 to 9, first Thursday of the month. So meet your neighbors, meet new people. And also that same night, we had game night. We had 3 council members there. So we had a quorum at the trivia game night. And then Saturday, all of us were here for the workshop on the outdoor seating. And that was a very beneficial and productive meeting. Everybody was cooperating. There was no arguments. It was good to see everybody getting along and pulling for the common good of our community. And on economic development, I talked to Eric Staus. He's the one that built the new units on Iowa Hill Road. And he's got 10.8 acres for sale that I think's already been approved for apartments. And I think it's important for everybody to be aware of economic opportunities and discuss those. And I got David Carter, who built the units on Neelan. communicating with Eric Staus. So these are things that can develop if we all get together for coffee conversation and other events to keep the ball rolling. Thank you.
I attended a heartbreaking loss by our girls basketball team last week. That was a real heartbreaker, and I've encouraged them, and they're starting the paperwork to get a photo of those girls and their accomplishments over the last few years on the billboard on I-80. So I've been working with that. I attended Aaron's downtown group meeting. I'm encouraged by that activity. And I believe, I see a sold sign on the ice cream store, and it seems a small thing, but I don't believe that it's a coincidence with that railroad heritage group that's moving forward toward moving that caboose and creating a railroad heritage park, and what Aaron is doing, because that word gets around, and people that are looking to make investments, they pick up on things like that. So I don't think it was a coincidence that the ice cream store is sold. I'm not sure what it's going to be. That's up to the new owner, but it's just encouraging. And that's it for me.
All right, thank you. Trinity?
So Larry, thank you so much for bringing up the girls basketball team and their very hard fought season. We've had several of these back-to-back incredible seasons over the last several years. And, we had intended to honor the girls basketball team and specifically Coach Rex and the rest of the coaches back in 2020. But unfortunately, due to COVID-19, it's been interruption after interruption. We did at one point give out certificates, but I wanted to ask council if we could consider putting together a plaque for the girls basketball team for the school, just in recognition, put together a resolution maybe at the next meeting if possible, to recognize them. And then what I was hoping we could do, they have their banquet on the 30th. I'm attending as a parent also, but as schools liaison, I was hoping we could present them with a plaque at that banquet, just to honor them. And then if council's open to it, not that, we're made of money, but potentially making a donation to the program in some amount to go with it, just to really, say, hey, you guys really make us proud. They've done some fantastic fundraising in the last 12 months. I've been working with Coach Rex on that quite a bit. From private donors, we raised, this is separate from another fund they're doing. So it's a little over $2,000 in private funds, separate from their other kid ran fundraisers. And then we did also have another very large donor come in with quite a bit. So I think all in right now, they're looking at like $17,000 coming their way in the next few months here. Between PG&E, a private donor, and then a lot of hard work from, members of this community and others. So, really, really awesome work. So they definitely have skin in the game. I'll put it that way. I'm not talking about a large amount. I'm thinking, maybe $500 or something like that. But, I leave it to council discretion. I digress from that a little bit. We can maybe decide and go to the order if we want to do that. Get the.
Yeah, bring it up there.
That'd be great. And then, oh, you had a question?
Yeah, regarding the basketball game.
Yeah. If you remember when I'm done blah, blah, blahing, you're more than welcome to ask.
Yeah, just go ahead and wave again whenever
you remember.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to bring up, just because, timeliness with the storm coming up and everything, we've been through hell in the last 8 years with emergency after emergency after emergency. And, Marnie, when she was on council, had brought up the desire for us to implement a CERT team here in Colfax. But the difficulty with implementing a CERT team is it does require a lot of very specific and coordinated, consistent effort. that was a pretty big challenge in us ever going anywhere with it because we didn't have like a main point that was really driving it forward. I would like to just see how interested council is and members of the public in pursuing that again. Because I think it could be very valuable, especially for, in emergencies, to make sure that each of your elected officials have a designated emergency response role so that there's not a competition of priorities and communication, but rather everyone's busy doing something effectively meaningful, regardless of what we're dealing with.
Yeah, just make a quick comment on that. So there's a gentleman, Ben Vaughn in town. He's working on that. I've been working with him on that. I
Beautiful.
think something that would be something good for the Emergency Services Committee to meet and discuss and come up with a plan.
Yeah, I love
Do that.
that. Maybe me and you can schedule something and invite him to join us, and come up with, like you said, come up with a plan, and then we can make assignments and go from there.
For the public's knowledge, you want to tell them what CERT is?
Oh, I apologize. So,
The acronym life that we.
yeah, so I'm sorry. A CERT team is a community emergency response team. So it is, they're governed under FEMA. But it's something that local jurisdictions, local workplaces, or even community members can stand up. And it is an organized ICS structure that follows, basic EOC guideline. And EOC is Emergency Operations Center, by the way. So they provide coordination and response to emergencies in an organized fashion, where everyone has a role to play. They know what their job is, and then we're able to tap on our volunteers as needed. It does get into critical response, including some really nitty-gritty training, including things like debris removal, so it really does get in the weeds, which is awesome. The other great thing about CERT is they do have teen CERT.
Mm-hmm.
So teenagers are actually able to go through the training and participate in these programs. So our high schoolers are capable of being tapped on by our emergency services for auxiliary overflow staffing when we really are in a bind. So it's a great program. It's a great opportunity. And we have a lot of amazing training programs with our sheriff's department and CAL FIRE that we could work with effectively. So thank you, Sean. Let's definitely get that scheduled. And then maybe when we're done getting our stuff together, we could do a Saturday workshop with council and the community to get more in the weeds with everybody else.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to go about that. Great, thanks.
That's all I got.
Caroline?
I was actually down in SAC with SACOG on Monday with the Policy and Innovation Committee. We did have trivia night. Damon's rocking it. It's our second one that we've done, and it's gone very well. Sean won last night, by the way. I'm going to phrase that. Jessica won.
Thanks to my wife.
So, and TJ's was nice enough to sponsor the prizes for everybody. So that was awesome. And I happened to come across this today and I screenshotted it just to make sure to send to you, Aaron. Congressman Kevin Kiley is part of a contest. It's a congressional art competition for high schoolers. Submissions are due April 25th. There's a whole link, but if you go to Congressman Kevin Kiley's Facebook page, it's one of his first posts on there. So I wanted to make sure to mention that, like I said, so it's open to high schoolers with artistic talent for these submissions for the congressional art competition. So I wanted to make sure you knew about that, but then we connect with the high schoolers and let them know that that's out there as well. So that's it.
Right. Had a busy couple of weeks. 27th at Pioneer Community Energy Meeting. I was appointed to the Energy Procurement Committee. We're looking over energy contracts and trying to get the best deal for Pioneer customers and procure enough energy for the next few years so that Pioneer can expand. They're looking at expanding to several other cities, including Chico, Live Oak, Orland, Oroville, Sonora, Yuba City, Willows, Paradise, and unincorporated areas of Butte, Glen, Nevada, Sutter, and Tuolumne counties. So more than doubling the amount of power that we're buying and more than doubling the number of customers that Pioneer will have to really increase the purchasing power that Pioneer has to make energy even cheaper for all its customers. So that should be happening over the next 2 years. It's kind of a long process, but it's getting started. And that'll be huge. for our community as one of the founding members here in Placer County, and Colfax being one of the founding members, I believe. Cam, were you on the board for that?
Yeah, started right here.
Yep, yep. So it's really exciting to see that small little energy co-op that started here in Colfax and Placer County is going to grow to expand, take on so many more locations and customers. I also got to go to trivia night last night, as said. My wife won. Was definitely not me. That was all her. But I got to sit there and watch her win. And it was a great time. Dave did a great job. It's been a lot of fun. Looking forward to the next one. We're doing 80s trivia. It should be good. I'm gonna brush up on my 80s. Yeah.
It's the 25th.
Yeah, and they said if you dress up in some 80s stuff, then they might have an extra door prize for the best costume. So it'd be interesting to see. But hopefully we can get more attendance, and more people, the more fun it is. Definitely. Yesterday I had a meeting with the consultants from No Wildfire, the fire sensor company. They're working on improving their app that they have in their website, and still working on getting some fire sensors out. That the grant that we had because of the change of administration has been ended, but all the sensors were already purchased, and we do have subscriptions that go along with those sensors, so they'll still be getting put out. They just won't be doing the study that goes along with it. So we'll be able to leave these with the homeowners that get them, and the property owners. So interesting change, but that'll make the process a lot smoother and should make it go a lot faster to get these sensors out before summer. And today attended the Placer LAFCO meeting. Looking at Roseville's looking to expand into some areas of Western Placer County and kind of expand their sphere of influence. And that was approved. That the first steps of that process were approved. And also a lot of stuff going on with fire services trying to consolidate some of the local government fire departments. Other than that, that's all I had. Ron, you want to give your report?
Thank you. All right, so yesterday late afternoon, city staff responded to a complaint of a sewer spill on Canyon Way. Turned out that the force main had a break in it. We immediately called Lorraine Brothers Construction, local contractors. They were wonderful, come in and helped us fix that. They ended up having to replace a piece of the line, a short piece, but that was what was going on out there. That's all fixed and repaired now. Carl, city engineer, and I are working with Geocon, come up with a plan to install the French drain on Culver so we can stop the water from sweating up through the blacktop. I've sent them over the agreement, and we're just waiting for that to come back, but they've already actually started working before they've signed the agreement. So they're helping us out there. I'll be working on an economic development plan with consultant Robert Richardson, looking around the city, evaluating businesses and see what we can do to help out. I assisted the maintenance staff with reshaping and re-rocking the storm ditch on Church Street here. So if you go up the hill, you can see all the rock's been put back. We reshaped the ditch so it would drain, put down cloth and put in rock in there. So hopefully we won't have any more problems with that anytime soon. City maintenance staff also completed some repairs for some damaged siding on the sheriff's substation. And they were busy cleaning up the ball field park, getting that ready for springtime. And obviously continue to fill potholes throughout the city. Carl and I also discussed future CDBG paving projects. It looks like we might have some money left over from the last project to use for some more paving in town. So we're working that out. And then as Kathy said, she'll be bringing back a general plan and housing annual report, historic inventory on the next meeting. That's all I have.
I had a question, Ron. Do we know how old that section of force main was that leaked?
It looked to me like it was fairly new.
I believe that's a section we recently replaced. So
there was a crack and a break in the bell where the two pieces went together. I sent a picture out. You'll see what looks like a rock sitting on it. So as you know, as water moves through the pipe, makes a friction. If there's a rock sitting there, it will eventually try to cut a hole through the pipe or break the pipe. And that is the weak point, is the bell right there.
So
So they cut the bell out and put in a new section.
failed from improper backfill,
Yeah, they're all backfilled.
but it probably failed because of improper backfill.
I would hate to speculate at this point. It could have been, why
Nah.
would there be a big native rock on top of it when it should have been backfilled in sand or
Yes.
at least pea gravel at the minimum? But yeah, so whenever we do anything in-house here, it's always sand, 6 inches under, 6 inches over, 6 inches per side. And I think that's construction standard anyways, or something close to that. But
Right.
Carl can speak to that.
Yeah, Carl. Do you want to comment on that and kind of the condition of it? Because I believe that's a section we had replaced since I've been on council.
I'm not sure of the history before 2021 when I came, but we did replace a failed section, I think in 2018, about 250, 300 feet west of there. And that was just a small isolated repair. And what we found in that repair, they backfilled with gravel because 3/4 inch is easy to dump and kind of self-compacting, which adds to the problem that Ron is talking about. You're putting all this rock on the pipe and then vehicles are driving and causing all the vibrations. So I'm not sure what they backfilled. I came out this morning and looked at it. We were out there last night. I'm not sure what they backfilled. We can definitely ask and make sure that they do backfill with sand and then place the gravel on top of that. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. Any other questions or anything? No? So Larry?
One simple question, Ron. You thought you might have some money left over. What sort of money are you talking about, or do you know yet?
I think we're still working out that. Do you have an exact dollar amount, Carl? You're going to be up and down a lot, so.
Because it was a late night last night and I kept waking up with sewer dreams or nightmares.
And smelling your nose.
Back up early, I'm a little fog on the exact amount. I wanted to say it's around $1 million. So we're looking at Depot from Neyland down to Maine, and then Canyon from the edge where it's clear on Chevron, and then down 1,300 feet or so. We're going to do those as 2 alt projects, just in case prices come back high, and then at least we can deduct one or two of those areas if needed.
Is this not in your report? Am I not looking at the right number here in your, because you had budget committed amount, remaining amount? Is this not the right number that I'm looking at for this same subject?
I think that is.
Because it's 1,378,170. Yeah, I'm like, no, it's right there. As long as I'm looking at the right report. Okay, yeah, so
I wanted to say it was 1.3, but my
There you
brain's
go.
too foggy.
yeah, no,
That was a good estimate.
good job.
And what streets again did you mention?
Depot from Neyland to Maine and Canyon from the Chevron down about 1,300 feet west.
Thank you. All right. We'll go ahead and move on to item 8, council business. First item on council business tonight is the fiscal year 2024-2025 mid-year operating budget review. Shanna, can you please introduce the item?
I can. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Are you sure? Okay. All right. So in accordance with the city's financial policy, staff, along with Mayor Lohman and Mayor Pro Tem McCauley, have completed a comprehensive mid-year review of the city's financial activities, reviewed the city's fiscal year budget projections compared to the actual expenditures and revenues through December 31st, 2024. Overall, we saw an almost 15% increase in revenues and a very minimal decrease in expenses. Primary contributions to the revenue are due to an increase in retail sales tax, property taxes, and transient occupancy taxes adopted fiscal budget. We also continue to receive an increase in interest earnings from the city's LEAF investments. More thorough, detailed listing of all recommended changes is included in the agenda packet. All had a chance to review that. Anybody have any questions?
Any questions from the council? No. Any questions from the public? Nope. Nothing, I know, right? Nothing online? No?
That's because we went so hard on you beforehand
Yeah.
to get to this point.
A very comprehensive.
previous.
Yes.
It was
It
very,
was.
very comprehensive.
Thank you.
All right, if we don't have any comments, can I have a motion to approve the mid-year budget review?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained? Great. Move on to item 8B, economic development and support. Budget
Again.
review.
Hello
Thank you,
again,
Shannon.
council. At the last meeting, Councilmember Burris requested a staff report regarding the fiscal year-to-date support provided by council to events and nonprofit support. Staff report in your packet lists the contributions council has approved this fiscal year. If council approves the farm to table fundraiser as requested, $10,000 will remain in the economic development support budget. Since we are in the mid-year review process, it seems appropriate to discuss whether that remaining amount will be sufficient to get through to contribute to. So with that, I'll leave it open for council.
I was really hoping Harry was going to be here tonight. 3rd of July. I was really hoping they.
What do you want to know about here? You want me to go stand over there and I can answer your question?
Well, technically, you're not 3rd of July committee, right?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, it doesn't, if it's just answering a question.
I can answer it.
Okay, so do you know how much they're planning to ask the city for? Because that's really the big one that
That's the big question. The quote, actually, Caroline, you could answer this because you talked to the fireworks guy, then I'll take the other half. But if you want to say because you've talked to the fireworks person. If you want to tell them what the rough estimate was, and then I'll go from there. Well, and one of the things you specifically asked him was to make sure that there was actually enough in there to get them to be higher than they were last year. So that's also part of that expense. So the committee is we're doing at least 2 fundraisers a month. A couple months we have 3. So from those, we're hoping to have my projections are we'll have about 4,000, and that's all going towards the fireworks. So that would come off of what we're asking, they would be asking from the city. Better estimate line. We're hoping for not have to ask for. So I would say probably at minimum 8,000 would be my guess is that they would be asking for, because like I said, that's why we're doing all that fundraising. And what's awesome, there's been 3 community members that have reached out and called us directly asking to do fundraisers for us in addition to the businesses we've been doing them with. So
Great.
yeah, so yeah, hopefully that'll give us just at least 4,000 is what I'm looking at by the averages that we're getting back from them.
Great. Thank you.
We do have somebody online that would like to comment.
And Railroad Days and Winterfest are coming out of next year's
Yeah.
fiscal budget, so.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, if they come back, well, yeah, thank you.
Put you on the spot.
No, I appreciate that because that helps us kind of.
Okay,
down.
let's go ahead and take the online comment. Jane, go ahead. If you can,
Hi, when Caroline spoke at the lectern, her microphone was not broadcasting, so everything she said has been missed.
she said that basically their total cost is going to be about $12,000 for the fireworks, and they're going to continue to do some fundraising.
Thank you.
No problem. And just to clarify, Winterfest and Railroad Days are coming out of next year's fiscal budget. So basically 3rd of July is what we have left besides any other requests that come up that we can't anticipate yet.
It looks like we have about 10 left out of what we budgeted. So 12 seems like it's out of the picture, and the fundraising is essential, right? The more that group can raise, and I'd like to kick something in for the event. It's a big event for Colfax. But I think we have to look at that in terms of how much money is, how much money is left, not how much money we need.
Right. So the question here before us today is, would we like to adjust this number to pad it a little bit just in case we have any other small events or anything that come up that need a couple $100 or something like that? Do we want to add another 5 to it, or do we want to leave it as is, or?
I would rather leave it where it is because we already increased it for 10,000 for this year. I would say this needs to stay. And then if we want to look at it when we do a future budget possibly, because of course, as we're growing and we have more active people, there are more events happening, which are going to benefit the community and bring in visitors. But I wouldn't be willing to increase the overall budget for this line item at this point. So
If we run up against something, we can always bring it back. But
we may have requests between now and then, right? So we'll have chances to raise the budget if we wish.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We have
At the time
to do that whenever we need to. So if the money's there. Let's
Yeah.
clarify that before I get something thrown at me by our finance director.
Right. No, I would
There was
just
an overall
ask.
increase in rent.
All right.
except we spent it on the road last night.
Oh, yeah.
Right. No,
We budgeted in the sewer fund, right?
That's
Yeah,
not
so
sewer.
that is part of that, right?
Yeah, that's
so
a lot of the sewer fund.
that's all on the sewer fund. Yeah.
So I think my ask is that for next year, when we go to set next year's budget, I think it would be really prudent of us to set forth some criteria for what kind of events, we're able to sponsor, and what tiers of sponsorship we're able to offer potentially, or what the parameters are, what we're looking for in an application, and maybe even put an application form together so that we have some specific criteria, because I think while we are doing the right thing by giving back to our nonprofits, I just want to make sure that we're able to point to a consistent methodology we used for approvals and denials, because I think when it comes to nonprofits coming to the city and requesting donations, they don't just come in the form of, oh, I'd like to make an event donation request, for my nonprofit. Out of this specific fund. They also come in the form of like the Sierra Vista Community Center asking for fee waivers and things like that are not included in this. And that we don't always holistically look at that bigger picture and say, okay, well, total out of the tax revenue that we have collected, we have given this much to this organization, et cetera. So at least if we are putting together, some criteria and, some parameters and boundaries, when we do eventually have to say no, or when it makes sense to say no, at least we have, some agreed to ground rules already down where the public already has transparency, knowing there's a chance that it might not be a yes for that particular request. Because I think right now we're kind of in a position where it's uncomfortable to have to say, I'm not sure about this, especially when it's a nonprofit saying, well, I worked really hard and we really care about this event. And, we're community volunteers and we serve the community. But the reality is that some organizations are inevitably going to receive more funds than others. And it just makes sense. So I just want to wanted to take the really long way of saying I'd like to make sure we put some protocol in place this next year when we can. Maybe that's part of the budget workshop. We probably don't even need a separate meeting.
Okay.
And we had part of that conversation when we did this originally, talking about groups showing that they've already attempted to fundraise and done stuff, so that they're already showing they're putting in the effort to fundraise, so that it's circling back around to that conversation we had originally too. So I think putting together a formal application is a great idea.
Yeah.
Any other comments from the council? Any public comment on this item? Yeah. Now's the time.
I know, sorry, I did it again. I just wanted to say that just for you guys to just consider, sometimes people are putting in sweat equity in situations that may not directly relate to like a dollar amount that's been raised. And I would just hope that if a request came through, you would consider that.
That's exactly the kind of thing that I'd like to be able to have a methodology to articulate, because not everything is equal. Not everything is, tied to this specific fund in a specific number. And I think we need to put some brain power behind that.
Any other comment? No. All right. We don't have any actionable item on this, so we'll go ahead and move on to 8D. Sierra Vista Community Center funding request, farm table dinner event. Go ahead. Hi.
Hi, do I come up or?
No, yeah,
Okay.
you're, please.
So
So
I don't know if you have any words or if
Yeah.
you want to introduce the item.
Okay, yeah, I'm Nicole. I'm the liaison with the Colfax Community Garden at Sierra Vista Community Center. And I was thinking last time I didn't really talk about the garden very much. We have 26 beds. We have over 20, maybe 22 people, families that have plots. It's an all organic garden. It's been there for, I think, over 15 years. And it's really just like this epic gem in Colfax. There's, I think, 17 community gardens in all of Placer County. I've done tours. They're really beautiful. But I personally think that our community garden is just the quaintest little garden. I mean, it's nestled. You can see the Sierra Nevadas. You can look over downtown. It's so beautiful. And you guys are really welcome anytime. I'd love to give all of you a tour. I know Caroline's been able to see it before. Especially during summer when everything is blooming. It's really sweet, but I think it's like a gem of our town. And the long-term vision is to have workshops, to collaborate more with the Colfax Garden Club, to be able to have workshops for kids, to teach them how to grow things, plant bulbs. And it's really an amazing opportunity that I think the city could be capitalizing on more. Because we are in an age where food insecurity is a real thing. I think it'd be amazing to have a free organic food farm stand where our community members that are low income can just grab some free whatever, because we always have so much extra, obviously zucchinis. But yeah, it's a really cool thing. And so the farm to table dinner is a second event that I put on. The first one was a larger fundraiser that had vendors, and we had music and lots of different goodies and a raffle, and it turned out really nice. And this one is just going to be more intimate, really classy dinner, just 30 people. But it's going to really just showcase the garden, showcase sustainability, and bring an event to Colfax, kind of like an event we would see in Nevada City or Grass Valley, white tablecloth, really nice ambiance, beautiful music, and 3-course dinner, just to give our town, a little class, an event that people I think are really wanting to go to, something that we don't really have here very much. So we would be really grateful for any kind of donation if that's appropriate. And I think that's all. Were there any other questions from anybody?
Council, Kim,
Yeah.
you got any questions?
I'm all in favor of this. I was going to ask if there's any kind of program where there can be matching funds from Sierra Vista Center, if that's in the works.
Sierra Vista is waiving the fee to have our event there, so that's been really helpful.
Is it a $300 fee?
I don't know
Yeah,
what the fee is.
Like 3 and 5, yeah, for an event, so.
It's 5. Okay, so they're matching funds.
Larry, any question?
So this will be a fundraiser? The
Yeah.
idea?
Yeah, and what I forgot to mention is that we just built our shed for $3,500, which we raised all of that, and we got a $1,200 grant from the Auburn Garden Club. So the shed is done. It looks really great. I think it really upped our game as a garden. And our next project is putting in 1 or maybe 2 hip-high disability plots so that seniors that don't want to be, bending, can still use the garden. We have quite a few seniors. We have seniors in their 70s and 80s at the garden, which is amazing. But some of them are having a hard time getting down and getting in the dirt. So we want to keep them as long as possible. And so we need funds to get all of the wood that, 12-foot hip-high raised bed is going to cost a good amount of money. So that's like our next really big goal. And hopefully we can, with this farm to table dinner, create those garden beds. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Good, Trinity.
So I was just gonna ask if you guys are aware of, or if you've applied for, the USDA Community Facilities Grant Program.
I haven't heard of that.
Okay, let me make sure I get your email and send this to you, because as far as the qualifications are concerned, this particular cause would be high on their priority list for funding.
Cool.
So that's something that could potentially help out with exactly that. Yeah, that was my only thing. I just wanted to make sure you guys were aware of that program.
Thank you. Yeah.
That isn't the one that's been cut this week, is it?
No, this one's still open. Funding is still there. As of when I looked into it yesterday, still appears on their website to still be up. It never hurts to put in the application. So the worst that they can say is no.
Okay.
Caroline, any comment?
Do you want comments or questions?
Both.
Okay, so I actually wrote this out because I did a lot of thinking about it. First, I want to express the expression, I can't talk today. It's been a really long day. I need a drink. I want to express my appreciations, Nicole, to you, and I know your husband's helped as well, and you have quite a few that have done a lot of work up there recently. You've made a huge impact since you've been up there. You've done, I know you've had more beds put up there. You have more people active up there lately, and it's looking fantastic. So I give you major props for doing that. And anybody whose garden knows that the benefits of gardening go far beyond the actual fresh produce that we have. You have the stress relief, your time outdoors, your community engagement. Like you said, you have a bunch of seniors that are coming, and, that also helps keep them physically active.
And babies.
Yeah, it's a very extensive list, and I'm a big fan of it. I'm hesitant to give the money to it because, for one, this is the Economic Development Support Fund is what this category is called. And I'm having a hard time picturing how this would benefit the economic development of the community, because you've got a location that only is available to, you said you have 26 garden plots now.
Yeah.
And then this is a dinner for 30 people only at $100 a ticket, which is, for a farm to table dinner, that price is absolutely reasonable, without a doubt. But to me, that request does not match what the intention was with this economic development fund that we had. So I don't know how to balance those two things. So that's kind of where I'm stuck, because I love what you're doing and appreciate it, but I don't feel that it fits the criteria of the way the spirit of the way this account was designed. And you guys have shown that you can do some amazing fundraising with the shed that you were able to build.
Mm-hmm.
So on one hand, you want to say 500 is not a lot, but at the same time, does it actually fall in line with what the purpose of this fund was? So that's my thoughts. I know. It's completely different. And I went back and double checked the name of the fund and the intent of it. And a dinner that's only for 30 people impacting 26 plots. That's hard math for me to make fit into something that's an economic development fund. So I don't know how to make that work. And in my head, the two don't go together, unfortunately, because it's such a small, such a small audience, I guess. And usually the things that we're doing have a larger impact, larger attendance, a larger footprint. I don't know how to make that work.
So I actually shared that concern at first, about, the fact that it was not something where ticket sales were open to the general public and, that kind of thing, just because of, again, the reason we set up the fund and the way it was, originally intended. And to be honest, there was a part of me that said, I'm more than happy to make the donation to the nonprofit, and what they do with it to generate more funds is frankly none of my business. But what I kind of realized when I sat on it more and I thought through it was the other community outreach that they're trying to generate with this is really where the value is, with the workshops and then getting the garden clubs to host. I wanted to make sure you guys were working with Placer Master Gardeners, but
Yeah.
it sounds like you guys already are.
And RCD has been up for a tour, and we're really involved with them and as well.
Yeah.
California Resource Conservation District.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so where I kind of, went from like, okay, is this really the correct methodology for us to be looking at this to I'm good with it? Was when I kind of realized that, sometimes if you try to do too grand a scale of an event, it falls apart. And we've seen that happen before. And so you have to have some appreciation for a narrowly focused event that's going to be successful in meeting the goal to serve the community as a result. And so, I know there's some mental gymnastics involved there, but ultimately I think that $500 provides an essential community need because it further encourages, especially if we can follow up as well to make sure we've got some liaisonship with the youth. One of my really big concerns is sort of the dying mechanism and appreciation for agriculture, just with this younger generation. I know we're lucky enough in our community to have programs like 4-H. I know Sean's children were involved with 4-H. I know that you personally, your children are very involved with agriculture. But I can't say the same for like my kids, for example. I have not done a good job on that respect. And I look forward to the workshops and programs offered, by the Sierra Vista Center to bridge the gap in the skills I'm not capable of teaching them. And I think that a lot of other community members will benefit from that as well. And, it lends well to our survivability as a community, when things really do get bad. These are essential skills that we're not going to be a good place as a society if we lose. So with all that, that's kind of what tipped me onto the I'm in support side.
I think you brought up something good when you mentioned the kids. Do you have any current programs that you're looking at implementing to get kids up there more, whether it's doing field trips with the elementary schools or any way to kind of pull them in and have them up there to donate some time? Is that something you guys have looked at doing or talked to the schools about?
As of now, we haven't yet, but we're kind of building the infrastructure for the garden and building a stronger community around it. So really it's like, in the stage of a blooming flower, it's like kind of it's budding. And so once it's blooming, I think that we can really invite more people when we literally have somewhere for them to sit and a shade structure for kids to be under. We did get to have Deanna Nellis, the Creative Arts Studio. She brought her kiddos out to paint and draw. So that was really amazing to have the kids out in the garden. And the Colfax Garden Club, I've been in communication with them a little bit and they work with the elementary school. So that's how I would interact and kind of get something like that going. And then one of our garden members, her and I have a meeting to talk about some workshops she has in mind. I don't know what she has up her sleeve yet, but nothing is set in stone yet, but it's in the visionary point at this time.
I just want to say I really appreciate the methodology of taking it one bite at a time, but being consistent with the incremental effort. Because one of the things that we tend to see a lot in this town is people with grand ideas, and those grand ideas are unveiled at the very beginning and people get excited and then it sort of peters out because we either don't have the resources to sustain it or the volunteerism to sustain it, or, you know, people get tired. And money doesn't always flow to good ideas. It's just the reality. So I really appreciate the long-term incremental work you guys have been putting into this, and sort of that honesty about this is where we are, this is where we're heading, but it's going to take this to get there. So thank you for that.
Any other comments from the council? No?
I move that we authorize the city manager to grant $500 for this event.
Yeah, that'll be good. Cool. One sec. Any public comment on this item? No? Anything online? Yes, you can. That's all right. No, that's exactly what this is for.
It's not supposed to be our show.
Okay, so here's how I look at this from a promotional standpoint for Visit Historic Colfax. Colfax is a hard city to market, I would say, more difficult. We're really trying to create that momentum in events and essentially branding the city. And so when I heard about her farm to fork dinner, it's really along the lines of what other cities are doing. And it's really helpful for us to be able to have an event like that to promote. And even though it's a super small event, it's inclusive, right? It's exclusive, excuse me. And I just feel like that's going to maybe be even bigger next year and she can build on it. And I think it's great.
Thanks, Erin.
Thank you.
I think that building on your seniors and your kids and getting the programs out there, it's building those as possible would be the best.
You know, I didn't want to extend the conversation any longer, but a couple of years ago when we were budgeting, we had a $20,000, this is before I was on the council, we had $20,000 for nonprofits. And we spent $21,000 on fireworks, and even came to the point where we were calling it a fireworks fund. And I like fireworks as much as anybody, but I requested that we have a nonprofit budget and then we change the name of it. And I think an event like this would benefit the Sierra Vista Center. We have a wonderful community center there. The potential is there. It needs a lot of work. And everything we do for that community center that brings people there is good for Colfax and it's good for the center.
No more comments? No? We good? Yeah. No. All right. Larry has set forth a motion to approve the donation of $500. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes. All right.
Thank you all so much.
Yes. Thank you for getting this event going and running the garden.
And Nicole, make sure we get emails so I can send you the grant program information.
All right. The next item this evening is 8E, the digital billboard photography contest. City manager, can you please introduce this item? Oh, okay, Aaron. Thank you for coming up to introduce this item. All right. Yeah, you've been up. You know what you're doing.
I just wanted to let you know that you guys, I really appreciate being able to host the contest on the Visit Historic website. We had twice as many people enter, and we had probably 3 or 4 times the amount of people voting. So that was really exciting. So it's growing. So thank you.
Great. Right. All right, so the action before us is to review and decide upon a winning photography or photograph to be displayed on the digital billboard. Says, yeah, please. This says photography on here. I can read it straight out.
So, and I love entry too, but it is not to get people downtown, which is the whole purpose of this contest, to get people to come explore what we have. I love the picture. Don't get me wrong. I've seen the original. It's gorgeous. The lighting is fantastic, but I don't know if that's enough to convince people to get off the road and go exploring. That's my fear. I love the picture.
I think it might get our artsy people to go exploring. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, but I don't want them on the tracks.
Yeah, but it doesn't necessarily say, like, it doesn't give me like, come hang out on the track vibes.
But they do.
This to me says, oh, look at the landscape. Look at those trees. This is going to be a nice, like, it's a cold day and I'm going to have a coffee and stroll. Like, I don't know. It looks a little too inviting.
Yeah, I mean, the original intent was truly to highlight what we have downtown to offer and to help drag, I say drag, but to entice people to come around that corner. And that's what we as a council had originally, wanted it for. And so that's why it was the instructions are truly about downtown and highlighting our businesses that we have down there. And we've had scenery pictures on that digital billboard for several years now. And I don't think they've been enough to drag that many people downtown to encourage them to do that. Like I said, it's hard. I there's nothing train in my house whatsoever, but I would probably put that in my house because I really like it. But for the billboard, I would go for the first one.
Larry, Kim, you guys got comment?
Earlier I brought up that it's a very timely time to put the girls' basketball team up there.
That doesn't go away because of this.
Oh, I know that. I know that.
We do only have 3 billboard spots that we can use at one time. We did get the application for the girls and their artwork today.
Yeah, this will come up after that. Kim, any comment?
Well, they're both nice. But I'd like to see the one that of the old town, the 1880 image.
All right. Trinity?
I hate to be that person. I don't like entry number 1 at all. I don't think it's appealing. I don't think it makes it look like somewhere I'd want to go hang out. And it's not the fault of the photographer. I just think that it's an unflattering angle of downtown. I'm heavily in favor of entry number 2.
I know I have screenshots, just so that the rest of the council can know. Do you know what the numbers were?
Approximately, it's within 10 votes per picture. One thing that I would, I don't have a vested interest in either entries, but what I think about the opportunity with the billboard is that we want to draw people downtown, and we have a very small Main Street, and so you can only take so many angles of Main Street. And I think it is about what is going to be a grabbing picture that people notice the landscape and don't realize how beautiful Colfax is. And I realize that your initial intent was the downtown, and maybe the next contest we expand that. But I think we have so many beautiful landmarks that we could highlight on that billboard that would shock people about how beautiful Colfax is.
And I think that's really the point I was kind of trying to get on is I think what we're wanting out of the photos and what we're wanting to accomplish is to attract people. And, I love Grayson's work. I want to be very clear about that. He is an extremely talented photographer, no doubt. Unfortunately, I just don't believe that this image is going to attract people. And it's also a very busy image. And so when you think about it up on the billboard, even with our branding and logo, This particular image, it's just going to be noise. This is noise. The people driving by are not going to be able to really take in any of the particulars of this image and think, that's somewhere I just am dying to go. The other image says like, oh, that's beautiful. I want to check that out. I need to see that.
How are they gonna know how to find it?
My first reaction was that photo one shows people driving by that only have 5 or 7 seconds or whatever they have to see it, that Colfax has a downtown. And my first reaction to number 2, and this could be totally wrong, but at a quick glance, it looks to me like it's on fire. It really does. And it isn't, right? It's leaves on trees, but I look at it up there and it looks like the tracks are on fire, right?
It's not a Colfax.
But it does actually.
That's anywhere in the state, it's got tracks.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's open it up to public comment. You want to pass the mic around?
Please use the mic.
Here we go. Just pass that thing
Okay,
around.
now you gotta make it out loud so we can all hear it.
Everybody's got to hear it.
Will Stockman, 525 Pine Street, Colfax. Let me ask first, do you give out specifications, what you want in the photo?
Yes, it does actually say in the rules of downtown Colfax.
Okay, what you're missing, this is the second round of photos, billboard. There are no people in your photo. So even if people look up and see it, this is the second time they're going, oh, there's Colfax. Nobody lives there. What you want is people doing something that looks interesting. We have a lot of events. You've got railroad days, you've got 3rd of July, where there are people, Colfax. People want to come to where people are. These photos, this is a cool photo. Mike's right. Could be anywhere in the foothills. The other one, there's nobody on the street. That's what you're missing. People come to where people are. And comment.
I totally agree with you, and that's why I'm so excited for the following round, because the 3rd of July will fall in that window to be able to help with that. So I absolutely agree with you.
We can only go based on the applicants of people
Yeah.
that entered, right? We have 17 entries and these were the top 2 by far compared to the other ones.
Yeah.
And there were lots of landscapes.
Sure. People online.
So sorry, people online. There were lots of landscapes that were entries in that 17 and they didn't come anywhere near the 2 of these. So I would just say, your point is super valid and we do need to get people, but we need to, it's going to continue to grow. We'll have more entries to choose from and hopefully we'll, focus more on that in the promotion of the next one that we have some.
I'm curious while you have the mic real quick. Last time you guys brought the photos forward, the Colfax branding was already on the photos. So
Yeah.
that we got a really true image of what was going to go on the billboard.
Right.
We don't have that this time. And I think that kind of.
We did it a little different this time because you had asked for the pictures and I didn't know. I will make sure that that is on there next time because I think that's a huge point of not all the pictures are going to look good with the logo on them. And it could be distracting in some cases.
I think on this one, it's probably. That's that corner, and it's that white with the right, that's why I think it will. And we could change the color on that too, but that's where I would put it.
And I think that does drastically change, the impression on the other photo as well, because, yes, that could be any beautiful railroad town in America, but when you're saying that's Colfax and people are like, oh, it looks clean and wow, they've got really beautiful trees. And I just think that it gives a different vibe when you have the branding on there.
So was the aspect ratio on this dictated when you were in
Yes.
contest? Okay, no. And then number 2, is this for the digital billboard or is this for the static billboard? Okay. Wait, how long is that? 5, 6 seconds? Okay. All right, thank you.
And I also think that consistency is really important because, I'm love seeing the billboard when I go by and is the picture up, right? And I'm just one of those weirdos. And sometimes it's, you have 3 spots, but I think with branding is you have to have that continual same image showing. And sometimes you see some of the older pictures that are up there. And maybe we take 2 spots with whoever wins this time and put one for the girls, right? Like have more options for that to come up.
I know on the last one, we actually made it run in 2 spots for a while because it wasn't showing up very much. And then with putting the girls on there, it would be easy to do that as well. So, sorry.
Somewhere there has to be
Here we go.
the locomotives that came through town and the depot and all the people standing there. There's gotta be one that'd be perfect for them.
I will go.
How many times did that locomotive come through?
If you have the ability to take apart a video, like full shot, I add a video from.
It's possible. The part of the problem is it has to be in the right orientation to fit on that long rectangular billboard. Yeah, the aspect ratio has to be right. So I will go back and look through the files on that. I don't know. But, you know, bottom line, this part of this was to engage the community, and it had, you know, it was a contest for them to be able to be a part of, and really, you know, pull that community membership in with it and engagement as well as highlight it. So, but that doesn't mean we can't put out a specific call of, you know, for something like that.
But if you look at some of the pictures that are on there, they're stunning. Some of the ones that didn't get the vote.
Yeah, they're great.
There's some really stunning pictures.
Come on, where's that deal?
Yeah, have we encouraged people with drones?
I'm trying to get you what you want. I have that logo somewhere in here.
Because Jim Bowers, I know, has one of
Look, I know I
that
have-
North Main Street. And it's taken at about a 45-degree angle, and you can see the surroundings as well. But I doubt that he submitted it. But that was his notion.
Sure. I think it's gonna continue to grow. We'll do a better job promoting it. I'll make sure that the logos are on the entries. And maybe, like Carolyn said, is ask for some specific buildings to help some of the photographers know what direction we'd like to go next time, as opposed to leaving it maybe more open and drawn out.
We do have one online public comment.
All right.
Jane, go ahead.
Go ahead, Jane.
Once again, the microphone is not being used. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks. We'll try and stay on top of it.
That's a horrible one because it's not the right one on it whatsoever. But you can, as I said, this isn't actually the right logo because it's not curved. It'll be white up on the top, but if you put that on the bottom, it will pop it just a little bit and fill in that dark corner. I thought I had that actual logo, but I don't.
The actual.
Microphone.
Hey, mine was still on.
I need to get a hold of the original logo so that I could put it on there. So that would be helpful.
No problem. Do we have any other comments from the council? No? Any comments from the public? No? All right, I'm gonna go down the line. You can say 1 or 2 and we'll vote that way. Kim?
This is 2.
Downtown is number 1. That's number 2 with the train.
Of the 2.
I
Okay,
choose number 1 also.
Larry, number 1. Trinity?
Number 2.
2. Caroline?
Number 1.
Number 1, and I'll go number 1. All right, and then number 1, Grayson is the winner. Great. And thank you very much, Aaron, for your time on this and putting this together. This is awesome. It's really going to help show off Colfax. All right. Let's see, we will move on to item 8F. That's a busy agenda tonight.
Last time we were still here.
I don't know. I don't usually run meetings this long.
Eat a cookie.
Busy agenda. Yeah.
I've been able to smell them. I can smell them from here.
Okay, item 8F, we're going to discuss temporary improvements for final consideration prior to beginning installation of long-term equipment outdoor dining area on North Main Street.
So if I may, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
Carl is here to talk about if you do A, what it triggers past that point, what are we exempt from? And Kathy can chime in on that as well. So that's kind of what they're here for, is to give us some support and tell us what we can do and what that triggers and how many more things you have to do on each part.
Great. Thank you, Ron. Carl?
And thank you both for staying late, since, Ron put this
Yes.
at the very end of
Yeah,
tonight.
we really appreciate it.
So good to be back in front of council again. It's been, I think it's 6 months or something since I've been back. So, Ron and I put some time and effort into this, yesterday. A lot of the morning trying to figure this out. This is the first time we heard, about the raised platform, I don't know, months ago, but it was just like, yeah, maybe that it was an idea. So yesterday we got the email and it was the first time we had a chance to look at this and try to evaluate it. Taking that space, the existing space, with our previous plan of putting in a ramp down onto the pavement, the pavement's
Carl,
not.
can I briefly interrupt you? I'm so
Sure.
sorry. Caroline, can you please announce your conflict and
Oh,
step down on this one?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, no, I will officially recuse
And-
myself from this, since I'm involved in railroad days and I'm the one that started this whole nightmare.
Thanks.
I will
I
happily-
appreciate that.
Not
And
a
I'm sorry
problem.
to throw things off.
Thanks for catching that.
So just so everyone is clear,
No, you're staying there. I'm just gonna sit here.
It's okay, Carolyn, you didn't start the nightmare. You just picked up the nightmare.
Oh, you started.
So Councilmember McCauley's president of Railroad Days. She applied for the grant that's funding this project, which we appreciate, but that does give rise to a financial conflict. Thank you, Caroline.
Okay, go ahead. So going back to the original design, which just put a ramp down to the existing pavement surface, would make it to where, since the space isn't totally compliant, there is some compliant areas down there. It would make it to where if there was any legal action or anything, we could easily take the ramp out and we're back to existing condition with the parking lot. The problem with the proposed area, Joe looked into the historic area, so we'd be allowed to have all the storefronts remain as is, even though they're not compliant. And even if we tore all of that concrete sidewalk out, it would be very difficult to make that compliant because of the elevation differences between all the storefronts.
Real
So-
quick for the audience, Joe Sweeties, our building inspector and code enforcement person, and our ADA expert.
And I'm Carl Moore, the city engineer. So if we put in this temporary raised platform, it would have to be, any proposed work would have to meet code and would have to be compliant. And with those grades, the grade changes in the parking lot, the grade changes along the sidewalk on the storefront, it would require design. So we'd have to hire a survey company to get all the existing features. We'd have to hire a design firm to design and make this compliant, and possibly require geotechnical for the structural elements of the columns in the shade structure. That would most likely eat half of the budget, which wouldn't leave much budget left for the improvements. So in a nutshell, that's what we saw in a 4-hour quick review. And I didn't do any cost analysis. I haven't looked at the costs at all yet. But that's where we're at. Any
For the
questions?
structure, you mentioned the shade sail
Mhm.
structures. How does that differentiate if the city did it with the other temporary proposal? Because either way, we need columns to mount the shade sails on.
Right. I don't think he's saying you can't do it. He said this is what it's going to take to do it.
No, but I'm asking what the difference is between the raised platform one or the other, or is that engineering required regardless of whether we go with option 1 or 2? Because I know you mentioned you were looking into I-beams. To me, it doesn't matter which tower we pick. It sounds like either option, if we have a structure holding up shade sails, we need to have it engineered.
Yeah, so if, say we left the existing pavement out there right now and we wanted to install permanent shade structure with permanent columns, now we're making improvements to the area and then that would trigger the ADA compliance. So we can put up, temporary umbrellas, we can put up temporary things that we can easily take down. But once we start doing proposed or permanent work, that's where design comes in and that's where ADA compliance comes in.
Okay, so if the towers are removable, that goes away?
We'd have to confirm with Joe and his Bureau Veritas has a CASP member. I'm not CASP certified, so we'd have to look into that more.
And so with the platform being temporary, if it's truly temporary, does that also still trigger all of the other stuff? Even if
Yes.
it's completely removable?
Because it's proposed work,
Mhm.
it has to be compliant.
What was that word?
Because we're making improvements,
Mhm.
those improvements have to comply with current code.
Right, but just the improvements have to comply with current code. We're not triggering, like you said, we're not triggering redoing the sidewalk around there or anything like that. It's just the improvements need to be to code. So we have to have proper ADA entry and exit, and the structural components have to be to code.
Yeah, so we would make it, we would require the design to have ADA compliant access of 1 or 2 points. And then the rest of it wouldn't be, because you're going to have non-compliant areas, and that's okay. So there would be a small non-compliant transition in between 2 compliant access points.
And would that small non-compliant be a historical exemption?
Would it be what?
Could that fall under historical exemption?
The historical exemption is the existing sidewalk itself.
Okay.
We'd have the non-compliant would be in the proposed improvement area.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, which reviews did you say we would need for that proposed improvement? You said we need it engineered. What else?
We'd need survey, civil engineering, and structural engineering for the columns. And possibly geotechnical engineering. Structural might be able to make worst case assumptions about the soil conditions, and then just their footings would be larger based on that. So there'd be added cost potentially for larger footings. Without a geotechnical report, geotechnical report's probably going to be about $3,500, $4,500.
Okay, is there any possibility of us having the engineering survey, structural geotech submitted to the city as in-kind donations where it's been completed and then the city would provide approval? Or I'm trying to think through this in a way that can reduce cost expenditure, but still get us the best possible product.
If firms are willing to donate their staff time, yeah.
Okay.
The geotechnical part interests me because it's the same street underneath. If there's any geotechnical issues, they're already there, right? But
no, the geotech would identify the soil, the subsoil, because you're going to have to excavate below the street and put in concrete footings. And that would identify the soil parameters, the depth of any, if there's any bedrock there.
No, I understood that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any more questions from council?
No, I think I understand.
Okay. Any public comment on this item? Tim? Thank you, Shanna, for passing the mic around.
Thank you. Carl, if it was, and I'm just thinking, if it's designated as a mobile platform, and what I'm thinking of as mobile is when people have concerts, bands get out, they have the mobile platform. They are up to code as far as the weight limit that can be held, but it would not be secured into the ground. Something that would have casters, something like that, but has brakes on it. Would that get us past having to do all the permanent regulations?
So you're talking like a movable platform that we'd put tables and chairs on?
It would be movable, but it would be secured with braking like I said, other platforms that they use at a concert or something like that. They put it up, they take it down, but this would just sit there. And if need be, you could remove it. It could be rolled out, folded up like a table and rolled out. I'm just wondering if there's a way to get around this permanent.
Yeah. So like without getting into the nitty gritty of how we would do it, if it technically could be lifted up and moved in one piece, would that get us out of this?
Taken apart.
Yeah.
So if it's
I think that's
preliminary,
there's a potential liability issue there,
Uh-huh.
obviously, something moves,
Yep.
somebody trips and hurts himself. But I would say that if there's any space that we have that's available to the public, it's gonna have to meet code.
Yep.
And for the city, we would not want to take on any added liability. So we would want to make sure that we had a design professional, platform design professional or company, that we would have them look at our situation and provide a proposal.
I think what we're all getting at here is that there's a path to yes, and we're trying to find it through the weeds. And not to disparage, building inspectors and municipal employees, but your job a lot of times is to say no, and we don't like it. So, we're definitely trying to cut through some red tape here.
I'm hearing like these two options. Number one is to do the right thing. And number two is to do the wrong thing because we might have to take it out. That's kind of what I heard. And I prefer that we do the right thing. And the right thing really means a surface that's even with the curb. That I believe is the right thing, as opposed to the risk of a curb people can fall over and narrow ramps and all that. And I believe that would be really tacky. So, I prefer doing the right thing. And another question I'd like to ask you, and maybe Phil, is because of this particular surface and the way it's put together, it seems to me that it is removable. It's just gravel and granite dust or whatever that's been dropped into this grid. And it's such that you can drive a truck on it. So it's very sturdy. It seems like, yet that's removable. It seems like, I don't know if anybody has ever done it. I'm sure they have, but I prefer that rather than cutting corners. I want to do something that's nice enough where people will actually come there to sit there and doing it the right way. So I'll get off my soapbox.
And the illustrations are great, but you can't build off of these. And there's no way of confirming that any of that is compliant. So there was discussion too about, well, what if we had a survey completed and I do the design? Then does the city have E&O insurance, or would I need a E&O insurance? I don't know. Am I comfortable providing designs for parking lots and stuff? And like I did across the street? Yes. But in this case, this is a tricky area. And I don't think we should cut any corners and increase our potential liability. I don't think we could give this to a contractor and have it say, contractor, make this max 2% in any direction, and have him just be able to wing it.
I get that.
Other question. Caroline, you had a question?
Wait, yes, I do have a question.
Then I'm going to take the online comment, then I'll take your comment. Go ahead.
Okay, so.
Time's up.
I'm sorry, I don't talk as fast as everybody else. No. So bottom line is, in either plan, the shade posts will have to meet all these surveying, the civil surveying, the structural surveying, the geotech, all that. So either plan, if we do the shade cells, that's.
Yes. Any permanent structures would require everything be brought up to code.
So that would include redoing the area to bring it up to the side,
Yeah.
the height of the curb too. So all that's got to be up to
Okay,
code.
so if you don't raised, area, do you have to have the same engineering, surveying?
If we don't do the raised platform, but we put it in permanent columns, we still have to make the area
Okay,
compliant.
so if we don't do columns, but we don't do the raised area, do we still have to go through all this?
No. No, so the city's already bought a ramp that we were going to install. And it's long enough so that is ADA compliant and it's less than, or it's 36 inches minimum, so it meets ADA code.
So if we don't do the raised platform, and we don't have to do all the surveying and
Mhm. With the caveat that if there's that well-known lawyer in Sacramento that likes to go around and sue cities and businesses. If anybody came and said that this, I don't know the law well enough or the requirements that can we make one table ADA? And the rest of the area is not ADA compliant, and then we designate that one table as ADA, the ADA table. I've seen that in places, but I don't know if that alleviates us from making the whole area compliant.
I think like within restaurants, we have two out of tables. So, I think it depends on the size of the area. But it's either one or two size of the area. So.
Can you clarify, did you say the city purchased the ramp? I was under the impression Railroad Days purchased the ramp, so I just
Yes.
want to make sure I'm clear on who's doing what, because this is a little confusing.
Okay. Sir, one
Thank
second.
you.
We got a comment online that's been hanging out for a minute. I'll get right to you. Jane, go ahead.
Hi, Jane Gallagher. I noticed on KCRA Channel 3 this evening that the existing dining area has had some destruction due to winds and the rain. If we aren't maintaining and moving the umbrellas when we have this much notice for a storm, what would we do with a shade?
All right.
Just to clarify, there's been no current damage to the area. That is existing. Those umbrellas have been there for quite a while. Lead at Main Street Pizza has been buying and replacing them at his own cost for years. The structures have been put up. And he was in he was getting close to buying new umbrellas for the area, but we've had this project started and going on for quite a while now, and he had held off. So to be fair, the umbrellas that are in the area and the structure itself that is there has not seen any further damage to what it's already gone through, being seasoned, setting there for now, months, waiting for this project to go somewhere. So, yeah, no, there has been no further damage. That was just a comment made by the news crew because they're not aware of the structure, and it's being there for as long as it has and not seeing any current maintenance improvements.
And
Yeah.
I think Jane also asked about a permanent structure. The permanent structure would be designed for that wind load, so we would not have to take the shade structure down.
Finally, sorry about that.
Thank you, appreciate it. My question is, the design of these columns, could there be a bridged element on those in terms of connecting those things up above, therefore eliminating the require for a footing other than just from the standpoint of coefficient pressure? Meaning that you've connected, that you'd have cables connecting these originally, but now you've got maybe a structural member connecting all those nodes together and therefore making a structure that's rigid on top, therefore reducing the lateral load from winds, but also potentially reducing the need for the changes down below in terms of footage.
There'd be a severe risk of uplift. So it would still require some type of structural design to keep it on the ground.
For anchoring purposes. Right. But that no longer could be considered a temporary, it was just even temporarily just attached to the ground.
Right. And a lot of the shade structure manufacturers will do the structural calcs themselves, so there could be some cost savings there. But it's still a permanent structure that would now trigger the ADA compliance.
Okay.
This is the current picture when you Google our business. And this can't be helpful. So I don't care what happens with all this at this point. This needs to come down in front of us. If they want to move it in front of Main Street, it's great. Let them do it. But this is our current. Very different. If you want to draw people facts, this is not.
Pretty old picture.
Yeah,
No, that's an old picture.
no, it's not. It's 1 month ago. 1 month ago, this was taken because my logos. 1 month ago.
I missed it.
So, okay. The structure that where it is still serves a purpose. And it was there and not saying this and it was there when you. And you were aware that it was there. And Snapdragon was aware that it was there. And words directly out of their mouth were, it didn't matter to them because they were in the back. Their business, their storefront is
Well, now.
in the back.
That's changed.
But it was there and it still served. Maybe not to your business particular, but it was.
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and we call for point of order.
I think we want to go forward in a positive direction and not back and forth about what we don't like.
All right. Okay. Well, go ahead, Caroline.
Yeah, now it's my turn. Okay, so here's my thought. We could have those tables that you guys selected, those wood tables, in a heartbeat, because they have 8 of them ready.
Yeah, actually, talking to this 5.
Okay.
For the other 3.
So here's the thing. We had this basic idea because we wanted to improve what we had, that was my whole purpose, improves what we have. We have this beautiful plan down the line. And unfortunately, what's happened is we've taken this idea of let's make what we've got better. Let's get it done. Let's make it better what it can be. And now we're like, no, we want this grandiose plan over here. I want the mansion. We could sit here for months and try to figure out how to make it still temporary and how to put a thing in. And you know what's going to happen? It's going to get worse. So either let us do something now and fit the rules of keep it temporary. Just put the fence around it. We'll get the other tables. It'll look a million times better. And let's keep focused on the downtown connectivity plan that we have and figure out what we can do in small chunks down the line and stop trying to bite off more than we can chew. That's so far above what Colfax can do right now. There we go.
I'm not gonna vote that.
Thank you.
Bottom line, that's the thing, this is bottom line.
All right. All right.
Any other questions?
Any other questions from the council or comments? Public good?
I would make one more comment.
Okay.
I think when we start into something and we call it temporary, it's not going to end well. And I'll just repeat what I said before. I would like to do the right thing the first time and at least take it far enough along to know what the cost is before we make this kind of decision. And the thing that's driving me the strongest is safety. I believe if people can walk right off without going over a curb, I think that's a better situation.
Thank you, Larry. Caroline, got something else?
One more thing, and I don't like deadlines. If I haven't spent that money and shown that it's done by September, that money goes back to UP. And we don't have $10,000 to put into downtown. And that's just what it is. So keep that in mind.
Sir?
Yeah, I'd like to say simply from the standpoint of the surface though, like if you just have it repeating on the asphalt without any treatment of that asphalt, a new layer of asphalt emulsion. Give it a sprucing of that area. You're actually not doing raising on the vent on it. Just do something to the asphalt to make it feel like you actually have a defined, cleaned up area.
Yeah, something like a little bit of reseal, like seal coat maintenance, something like that over. It's not going to trigger anything. So it's just a little bit of maintenance. So we'll look at something like that too. So there's Tim. Yeah, go ahead. Grab the mic. The discussion's good. Let's just keep it civil.
Sorry, Sean.
You're good, Tim.
I'm just thinking, so kind of like what Caroline is talking about. So right now, there is $35,000 to use on this area. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so I'm thinking with that $35,000, it can be a very nice outdoor seating area using the same space that is designated now in front of basically the 4 stores. And also then, as time goes on with the new redevelopment of downtown, yeah, it can be changed. This would not be set in stone by any means. So I would really encourage that you pass to go ahead and do the best we can. Modifications would be there. You're just talking about the pavement and maybe other different type of boundaries around that area. But it sure would be a great improvement one way or the other. And the other question that I do have then, will the city be maintaining the area? So something like this picture here does not happen. So in other words, or whoever's maintaining it would take this stuff down when we know there's a storm. When we know, I mean, we know this when it's happening, but just to maintain it, to keep it looking nice.
So the idea is the city does the major maintenance and the businesses do the minor maintenance. So hopefully we can, once we get this built, we can work out where those lines are truly drawn, who's taking down the shades or the umbrellas or anything like that, and who's putting the stuff away, who's covering it, who's doing the general cleaning, when are we going to come in and pressure wash or do whatever other major maintenance that needs to be done. So that will be defined between the two. All right. Any other comments? Anything else?
If it's back to council, then.
Yep. Back to council. Have you got just a comment though?
So kind of my thoughts at this point are, if we want, you know, the way I see it, we've already seen the lowest quality version, which would be version 1, the nightmares that, you know, existed that we've already shown examples of. Well, you know, it was good until it wasn't, when it rained and people smoked and people hit the hay bales and it got gross. So, you know, with that in mind, you know, we've seen the worst version. We know the best version is our I can't speak tonight. It's the plan that's in the future requiring lots of money that's already been formulated. So those are the 2 extreme ends of the spectrum we're working with here. The 2 solutions that we were kind of discussing tonight, I think, are not quite as far apart from each other as they seem. And I think that we're really hung up on that when we don't necessarily need to, because a lot of the same components are required to accomplish both, specifically the fencing. So the wrought iron fencing was something that we said we were going to do regardless of whether it's a raised platform or not. And one of the things I'd like to suggest to council tonight is that we authorize expenditure for the fencing, because it's going to be used regardless. If we get the tables ordered, those will be used regardless. And any other materials that will be used regardless of whether we go with a platform or no platform, I think it would be prudent for us to go ahead and get those ordered because then we can take down the deteriorated, I mean, I'm just gonna be blunt, the fencing looks really trash. And that's not what any business wants. I don't think LEED wants it to look that way either. So, you know, the quicker we get those materials, the quicker we can deal with the dilapidated appearance. While we do whatever else we need to do this right way the first time, to Larry's point, because if we can get that part done, then that gives us a moment here to reach out to our network of people that we work with. You know, I work with a lot of engineers. I might be able to get someone who's willing to, at a reduced cost, donate some time towards the project because it may have a tax benefit to them, especially because we have a nonprofit involved in this situation. So I think that we have some more opportunity to explore, and we don't need to hold up the entire show to do it. So not to, you know, be that person that's being indecisive, but I think there really is a middle ground solution we can give direction to staff on tonight that might actually progress everybody in the right direction, make everybody happy. So curious, Larry, what are your thoughts on that particularly?
Mine are, if we're going to compare costs, we should know what the costs are and not just think we know.
That's a great point.
And so we have a good idea, but we should know what the costs are. And then I would say one other thing, you know, bench sitting isn't the best for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I love those tables, but I'm not sure if they should all be those big, long benches. You know, some people need something to lean back on, for example. And so we need to think about the seating and the table a little bit more as well, the tables. I love the way they look, but they don't accommodate people that want to sit in a chair.
Larry, the ADA tables would absolutely allow a chair from any one of those businesses to go along the edge, because the bench doesn't go all the way to the end. So that you could easily take, just like the chairs that are there now, and sit on the end or the side of it. The benches do not go all the way to the end, because it's made for the chair.
So we can take the ADA compliant benches and we can add chairs around them also.
I thought I've been passed back to Phil also in an email, the notion about benches and chairs. But the primary point I want to make is if we're going to start comparing costs, we need to know what the costs really are, not just what we think.
Ron, you had priced out the fencing at Home Depot, because you had a rough estimate.
I just looked at Home Depot for that type of fencing for the wrought iron, got a rough estimate. It's over 5,000, so we're gonna need 3 bids anyways.
So that's what you're roughly looking at, is roughly 5,000 for the fence, it's in that 5 or 6 range. And then the tables, if we stick with that wooden one, they round it out to about $400 a piece. Probably roughly 10 of them. So you're looking at about 4,000 for the tables. So that's for 10,000 right there roughly for the tables.
Thank you.
One more thing, if I can.
Please.
Yep.
Okay, so if we're doing a treatment on the asphalt, have you ever thought about doing like a chalk art event, maybe for that area? I think that'd be a really great thing to do, is make that surface smoother, right?
It would have to be rough enough. We wouldn't have to worry about people slipping and falling now.
Yeah, rough enough.
Yeah, I wouldn't have to worry about people slipping and falling.
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, so I mean, with kind of those thoughts in mind, the way I see it is I personally, my position is I would be comfortable giving direction to staff tonight to proceed on up to a maximum of the total 10,000 that was received by Railroad, by Union Pacific, with collaboration and donation from Railroad Days, to make sure that those expenditures, I'd like to alleviate the artificial pressure on our situation by allowing staff to proceed forward with the fencing and the tables, because that will get rid of that timeline, put us on a better track, and allow us to do, you know, either option. We can look into it more. And 2, like last point I'm going to make on that, if we get that part done, we can get the dilapidated part taken care of pretty immediately. It's not going to have to be a long drawn out thing. And then we can make sure that, you know, for the shade sails, that we get the tower situation figured out, because that's going to be an issue regardless of how we do this. So gives us some time to figure the rest of it out. How do you, Kim,
Okay.
Larry, Sean?
Okay.
I don't want to hog it.
Well, I can direct, thanks.
Well, I do think it's important above all to keep the project moving. And as Trinity said, build a fence and they will come.
There you go.
Sorry, but I had to get one in for the night.
Nice. Did you have a comment you wanted to make, Connor? If I hear about it.
I was just going to ask council to give the city engineer some direction on the plans he's proposing. So does the council want him to prepare a set of
Yes.
proposals, or what's the next step, just so we plan for the next?
So the way I see the next step is we need a little bit better. It would be nice to get information on this design. So just get a rough estimate of costs and everything for the design proposals we have in front of us. But I think direction tonight is going to be to go ahead and approve the funds for fencing purchases and tables, and then come back with a additional drawing for us to do the final approval on, and have the option, and by the next council meeting, have the drawings for final approval, and then also have a cost estimate for one of the raised designs with the engineering and everything. That way it satisfies both options. Yeah, we want to get it moving. We don't want to stop any of the work. So I think direction is and we'll go ahead and put it to a vote. So motion that we approve funds up to $10,000 for purchase of fencing and tables, direct staff to provide cost estimate for the raised designs, and also have staff provide a secondary design drawing without the raised seating area.
I'm thinking, what does it mean, fencing?
That
fencing is
black wrought iron
pretty
fencing.
expensive, right? I think.
Yeah, they were talking about
$6,000
$6,000 for the fence. That's what I was asking.
And then the tables, we probably hit 10 right there.
Yeah,
So I don't think we want to start installing fencing yet until we know what we're going to do, it seems like, but.
Is that it's easy to pop out? Alone, or any commitment whatsoever to the design.
Right, and regardless of the design we come up with, we know the basic footprint, so we know the amount of fencing we're going to need. And it is modular fencing, so it will be easy to install and move, or if we decide to raise it, we can pull it out. And it won't be that much of a cost burden to change it up if we need to.
If I may, my first bid on, or the first, I guess you want to call it a bid for fencing, was a little over $6,200. So when you're talking 10,000, just please keep that in mind.
Yeah, so 10 grand, that's at least $3 grand for tables.
That's installed?
No.
No. That we're just talking about authorizing the money for purchasing. We're not going to do any installation until we approve the final drawing at the next meeting.
So just for clarification, are you saying $10,000 between city and railroad days, or railroad days can do the tables and Ron has up to 10,000 if needs be for the fence? I just want to make sure that
10,000
where the
railroad
limit
days
is.
only, so that we can make sure that we have met the timeline commitments for Union Pacific. And that way we're not held against artificial timelines where that money could disappear.
Okay, so there is not enough to do both things with what I have, because I've already spent 1,700 on the one ramp and we do have to buy the second one too. So whether railroad days covers the fencing or the tables, I mean, we need to either make that number higher or kind of separate the two, just because it won't mesh.
Ron has the authority to spend under, a threshold, and he can do that from I'm good with Ron spending the supplement. I'm not worried about that
Okay,
particular.
I just wanted to make sure that we were very clear that there's kind of two different things going on there. So, thank you.
All right. Great.
In addition, if council's gonna request a cost estimate for a raised platform, I would require a survey. So there's gonna be a couple $1,000s for a survey. We'd survey the entire frontage. We'd get the storefronts. We'd get out into the parking lot, into the drive lanes, and that way we can design something that would be compliant. I can after we get the survey, I can prepare like a sketch or something. And then we can talk about whether or not we want the city engineer to design this, or if we wanted to go out for a civil engineering firm.
For now, for this next meeting, could you just give us a best guess based on materials and your general knowledge of the layout of the area?
For the
2-week cost estimate. We don't need to go into a full survey or anything. Just if we do it this way, this is a rough estimate, add 20%, and we'll call it, that's around what it's going to cost. We don't need a full, we're definitely going on this plan. We want to know exactly what it's going to cost. So just within 10 grand ish of what it's going to cost. I mean,
Shoot,
something
I'd be
like that.
happy with
So-
just a list of like what he needs done services wise that's gonna make this cost like the budget tank. Cause even if we have that, then I know who to go hunt.
Yeah, so just the very general high level overview of what you estimate the cost to be. We don't have to get into surveys or anything like that.
Design services and construction costs.
Yep.
And I've seen and heard a lot of different things, a DG surface, concrete surface, asphalt surface, demoing the asphalt to raise everything up. I don't know if I have enough direction on what it is that we want prepared for a cost. So
Maybe we could have a separate meeting to just line that out. Would you guys be okay with me and Caroline meeting with Carl just to make sure? Oh, yeah. Fine.
I'd be happy to meet.
Okay. That good? You guys okay with that? If me and Trinity meet and just kind of make sure it's lined out based on what we've had before us already?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, great. Then we'll do that. We'll set up a time where we can meet, even if it's just a Zoom meeting or whatever, it doesn't matter. So, yeah, it doesn't need to be long. We can just make sure you have the information you need and
that works.
That's it. All right, cool. All right. So I'm gonna go back to a motion again, I think. Are we ready for that? It's the last item. Yeah, we're good. All right, Caroline's falling asleep back there.
Easy.
We'll do a motion and then we'll provide staff direction. All right. So I'll make a motion that we do authorize, want to do 15 grand of the funds that are available for fencing and tables, just to make sure we're covered. And that way it's 10,000 from the Union Pacific donation and 5,000 out of the city funds, so that we cover the Union Pacific donations and we still have that buffer there. So we're not holding anything up and have to come back for another vote. Sound good, everybody?
Sounds good.
Okay, motion to authorize 15,000 for improvements for fencing and tables. Can I get a second?
I second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Recused? Yep, right there. All right, motion passes. Yes, okay, and staff direction will be, we'll get with Carl to make sure he has the information he needs to provide a very high level cost estimate for the current designs that we have in front of us. And we would also like a design drawing for the plan we have just developed as far as a non-raised seating area and just fencing around it.
And I'm sorry, I'd like to put one more motion on the floor just to make everything nice and clean. Last motion, just to form an ad hoc committee of Sean and I for the outdoor dining to work directly with staff to ensure that our staff direction is crystal clear and questions are answered.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Opposed, abstain, good. All right, made it past that item. We're almost done. All right, we got good of the order. Anybody got anything for good of the order? Kim?
It's good that it's not 9 o'clock yet.
Yeah, maybe
And-
we can make it out here before that.
And the other good thing is, girls basketball, we only lost by 2 points from Salesian, which is a private school from Richmond. Their tuition is $21,000 a year. So it's good that we only lost by 2, considering we were playing a Division II school. So you're next. Thank you.
Just to add to that, they won the Division I championship 2 years ago. And they provide scholarships to good athletes who don't have to pay that 21,000.
Trinity?
Okay, 2 things. One, while we were going back and forth, I posted on LinkedIn and I've already had like 6 people reach out about money and possibly donating services of engineering. So we might be on a great track. But the main thing I had for good of the order tonight was for Connie Marson. She reached out to several of us actually about the name at the Colfax ballpark. She did her presentation. We do have some financial challenges when it comes to fully correcting what has been done. But I just wanted to gauge council's interest on getting this on the agenda so we can kind of talk through a path forward, because while the plaque is a great first step, I do think it is important that we visit this item and see about timing and when we're going to do our general plan next so that we can correct what's been done
I
wrong.
was gonna say, I'm gonna have to chime in there because basically putting up a new sign and renaming the ballpark requires a whole relook into our general plan. We basically have to redo the whole general plan to be able to change.
Which
these.
is like the silliest.
Yeah, to be able to change these 2 things. And that is an incredibly expensive process. I mean, honestly, I think direction is going to basically be go put up a sign next to the other side and ask for forgiveness later. We don't care.
Yeah,
So,
well, and it sounds like we can do that part with no issue.
Right.
So that part's not an issue.
we just can't officially rename the sign,
Yes.
rename the park.
And so as far as the renaming the park, that's the part that I'd like to discuss with council and just come up with a game plan, because I do think it should be done. It's just a matter of when and how, and making sure we're not wastefully expending when there maybe is a cost-effective, plan to do it. So maybe it's a simple, hey, we adopt a resolution saying that this is the intent for the next general plan update. I don't care what it is. That's a conversation for when we agendize it, obviously. But I just want to see if council is interested in having that conversation.
I am definitely.
How far off are we on our general plan update? Didn't we just? I know, right?
I just want to make the comment, we can put up a plaque that has the original name of the park, but it seems to me an immediate need to do the general plan. We can plan to do that on the general plan the next time we do it, but not spend $10,000 to do it now.
Right. It's just that we can't officially rename the park. They can put up whatever sign we authorize is fine, and we're great with putting up a sign. It's just we can't officially rename the park.
But it seems like, there are a lot of people in town that would argue we did change the original name of the park. That was.
I'm sorry, we can't change the name of the plan, the park as it's listed on our general plan.
Yeah, well, obviously this is like a very deep rooted topic with a lot of emotion behind it. So I did ask Connie if she'd be interested in meeting with the other nonprofits who have all been part of the continual improvement and building of that park to make sure that we're all unified on the same page. No one feels slighted. And then, if we can just get an agenda item, maybe it's as simple as we just adopt a resolution for when we are going to change the name.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll talk about it when we get to it, but if we could get it on the agenda, that'd be great.
Sounds good. I think we got time in the next meeting. Caroline?
Since we did everything else tonight, we got room next time.
Yeah, right.
Since we're talking about future plans of changing things, I'm going to propose that we have a conversation about drastically either altering or just doing away with your mid-year budget review. Because we're going through and robbing Peter to pay Paul and moving money for not really any reason, because you always go a little lean in the first half in case something happens in the second half. And then we're moving it around, and a lot of these adjustments were like the very minuscule amount. It's like if it's not at least 10%. It's not. There's a lot of cities that don't actually do a mid-year budget review and move money around like that. Like they look at it, but they're not moving money. Literally, it's like a lot of those adjustments were
Right.
less than 5%. So here, let's just go move it back over here. It's why? You're only halfway through the year. You may still have a bunch more going on.
I'm just thinking.
So in May or June, we will be bringing forth the financial and administrative policies, and that would be the time to address if you would like to remove that from your current financial policy.
Perfect. Thank you.
Is that it? All right. I'm gonna just say I don't have anything. Ron, nope. Any public comment on our good of the order stuff? Nope. All right. Meeting adjourned.